dance of creation ordained by dear old Dad. He stepped closer, his shadow stretching, devouring the light she carried. This was the Prince of Darkness people in the future would speak of. All light sources itself from him. When he retracts it, all there will remain is the darkness he brings. His voice is deceptively soft, carrying venom in every syllable. I sought Michael in accordance with the very design Father so meticulously crafted. I called out to him, reaching into the threads of his nature, creation itself, to stir some response, some sign. And yet it was all in vain. Lucifer's tone hardened, his words weighted with malice. Sandalphon, that conniving, sanctimonious bastard. He has hidden Michael well. Without access to the will of God, even I am shackled, bound by the laws just as it would bind anyone else. And that revolting seraph dares to use Michael's own power of God as a plaything for his schemes. He has crafted laws so absolute they render his domain untouchable and unseen, while the clock ticks toward the inevitability of the unraveling of creation with Michael's death. He stepped closer still, his shadow consuming the space between them. His voice dropped to a near growl, each word like the lash of a whip. So forgive me, Mother, if my attempts to save my twin and all of creation sadden you. Any sorrow you feel pales in comparison to the agony you and the host inflicted upon him. Your abuse of his gentle nature brought us to this point. Lucifer's smirk returned, colder and more biting. But I don't expect you to understand. You regret it now, do you? How touching. But regret doesn't absolve you, Mother. Nor does it absolve the host. And Father, oh, Father knew better than anyone. Lucifer's bitterness lingered in the air like a storm cloud. His voice carried the finality of judgment.
Morgan Freeman, my man.
Ignorance is forgivable. Even malicious intent, when born of misunderstanding, can be pardoned. But you knew better. You, Father, and the host, those who should have protected Michael, who should have known his worth, chose to break him instead. For that, there can be no forgiveness. Not for me, not yet, not until Michael himself forgives you all. The shadows swallowed the last of Lucifer's words as his presence filled the chamber, a harbinger of wrath and inevitability. Until finally, it all disappeared in an instant, the archangel retracting any destructive influence from the room. Though his rage been restrained from exerting its self-influence outside of him, Lucifer's gaze was still narrow, his dark eyes gleaming with a mix of curiosity and frustration as he folded his arms across his chest. His posture was relaxed, almost casual, but there was an undercurrent of tension in the way his fingers tapped rhythmically against his bicep, a subtle drumbeat of impatience. He tilted his head slightly, the faintest smirk ghosting across his lips, though it held none of its usual mirth. If you truly wish to at least have a chance at obtaining my forgiveness, then Michael himself would have to speak for you. To do that we need to find him, so tell me, can you be of help to me with a certain matter? He questioned, his voice silky and measured, laced with a sharp edge of skepticism. Do you know of a way for me to access the copy of Father's memories I brought back with me from the before? He let the question hang in the air for a moment, his piercing gaze locking onto hers, searching for the faintest flicker of hesitation or knowledge. He shifted his weight, the faint rustle of his coat breaking the stillness as he leaned slightly closer, his shadow darkening the gilded chamber like a storm cloud rolling in. Is there any way to do so without unraveling my entire being? He continued, his tone deepening, carrying a quiet yet palpable urgency beneath the sharp edges of his words. His smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of vulnerability that he quickly buried beneath his usual air of confidence. He straightened, running a hand through his dark hair, a gesture that betrayed his frustration more than he intended. His voice dropped to something almost introspective, though still tinged with sarcasm. Surely, you of all beings must have some insight into this, Mother. Or are these scraps of Father's mind as enigmatic to you as they are to me? Perhaps they were left intentionally out of reach, locked away in yet another one of his oh-so-magnificent designs. Lucifer's hands dropped to his sides, his fingers flexing as though he were suppressing the urge to lash out at the very air around him. He paced a step, his shadow stretching with him, and then turned back, his gaze sharper, cutting through the room like a blade. Or, he once more began to add, his voice now dripping with biting skepticism, is this yet another of those delightful moments where your silence speaks louder than any answer could? You truly loved that when we were in heaven. Made you feel oh so wise. Go on, Mother, tell me. Is there a way to access what I brought back, or was this just another cosmic jest meant to torment me by Father? giving me hope once more to rip it away in his endless attempts to squash any defiance within my heart. He held her gaze unflinchingly, the weight of his question pressing down like a storm, daring her to provide him with something beyond empty assurances. The goddess hesitated, her radiant composure faltering for the briefest of moments. Her golden eyes softened, but they also carried a helplessness that was unlike her. She clasped her hands in front of her, her voice steady yet tinged with regret as she responded. "No, Lucifer," she said quietly, her tone a mix of resignation and sadness. "Your father. Yahweh is too unique a being. His omniscience, his memories."
If English isn't your first language like me, and you want your writing to reflect your voice, sign up for a free Grammarly account. I like to use their free AI features to help me draft emails, because sometimes the hardest part is getting started. But with their fluency suggestions, I feel confident that my writing is polished, natural, and most importantly, sounds like me. Grammarly Pro can help translate my primary language flawlessly and does it right when I'm writing. Another pro feature that I love is their one-click rewrites. This helps me rephrase entire sentences and paragraphs because these days, less is more when it comes to your writing. Consider trying Grammarly Pro today to elevate your skills, because using Grammarly helps me to go from English as my second language to my second nature.
Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda from the Kelley Blue Book Best Value brand. Buy online, reserve from select dealers, or hurry into your local Honda dealer today.
They are not things that can be accessed or replicated by anyone, not even you. What you brought back from the before is unprecedented, an echo of something far beyond the scope of what any of us understand. There is no guide for this, no precedent to follow. She stepped forward slightly, her hand lifting as though she wanted to console him, but she stopped short, her own uncertainty tethering her. "You are walking a path no one has ever tread before, and for that, I am sorry. I can offer you no answers." Lucifer stood silent for a moment, his piercing gaze locked on hers. Then he let out a long theatrical sigh, running a hand down his face with exaggerated weariness. "Of course," he drawled, his voice steeped in sarcasm. "Leave it to Father to be so endlessly unique that even I, his wisest creation, can't make sense of his little divine enigmas." He turned on his heel with a dramatic flourish of his coat, pacing away from her. "Well, isn't that just wonderfully unhelpful? Thank you, Mother, truly." His tone was biting, though the disappointment lurking beneath was palpable. As he reached the doorway, he stopped, exhaling sharply. "I suppose I'll have to find another way. I always do, after all." He threw a glance over his shoulder, his smirk returning, though it was laced with bitterness. "But don't worry, Mother. I'll keep the world from unraveling again. Just another day in the life of your favorite son." He stated mockery lacing his tone, for the position of favorite seems to only bring him sorrow, as it shackled him, and now even brought ruin to his twin's life. Without waiting for a response, Lucifer stepped into the shadows, leaving the chamber behind. Lucifer emerged into the open air of Lost Paradise, his steps purposeful but less agitated now. He inhaled deeply, letting the air cool the simmering annoyance within him. "Right then," he muttered to himself, a spark of mischief flickering in his eyes despite his frustration. "If I can't crack the enigma of dear old Dad just yet, I might as well focus on something productive." His mind shifted to his son, Baron. A promise had been made, one to teach the boy the intricacies of deals, a skill Lucifer himself had perfected over millennia, for it was based in desires, something he personified. "Baron," he mused aloud, his tone lightening, "now there's a mind worth sharpening. Teaching the boy might just be the perfect distraction, until I can think of a plan of action." With that, Lucifer spread his wings, the light from them causing the shadows to curl around him as he made his way to his son. Behind the sharp wit and calculated calm, his mind was already at work, plotting and planning for the next move in the grand chess game he found himself in. One puzzle could wait. For now, the devil had lessons to impart. Lucifer touched down near the expansive gardens of Lost Paradise, his landing marked by the faint shimmer of ethereal wings retracting into their own world. The air here was heavy with a scent of flora that seemed to bloom from dreams rather than soil, roses with shifting hues, their petals dancing in unseen breezes, and trees that bore fruit glowing with an internal, otherworldly light. Baron sat cross-legged beneath one such tree, the boy's posture uncharacteristically tense, his dark wings pulled tight against his back. He was toying with a cluster of shimmering crystal shards, remnants of a soul fractal Lucifer had gifted him weeks prior. The fragments danced above his palm in a slow, deliberate orbit, their motions mimicking the deliberate turns of a seasoned negotiator manipulating a pact. Each fragment was a leftover desire. To connect all of them is to fashion a deal based on the understanding of the very foundation of all the soul's desires. Lucifer's lips curved into a satisfied smirk. Not bad, my son. You're starting to grasp the subtleties. Baron glanced up, startled, though his control didn't falter. The shards continued their lazy orbit as he inclined his head in deference. Dad. Lucifer folded his arms as he approached, his shadow stretching long across the garden despite the lack of true sunlight. But subtleties are only part of the game, he said, his tone sharp yet tinged with pride. If you're to truly master the art dealing, you must learn not only how to spin the web, but also how to know when to let the fly struggle. Baron tilted his head, his golden eyes narrowing slightly. I thought you said a good deal is one where both parties leave thinking they've won. Ah, Lucifer replied, wagging a finger as he lowered himself to sit across from his son. That's the ideal. But ideals, my dear boy, are only a starting point. Real mastery lies in understanding that power dynamics are fluid. A good deal today can become a trap tomorrow, and you must always be the one holding the knife. Baron nodded slowly, his gaze dropping back to the shards in his hand. And how do I know when to cut the thread? Lucifer reached out, his index finger flicking one of the shards in its orbit. It spun out of its rhythm, shattering the perfect harmony Baron had created. When the other side believes they've won so completely they forget you're even in the game. Baron frowned, the shards trembling as his control wavered. So you're saying manipulation over trust? Lucifer's smirk softened, the faintest trace of warmth in his gaze as he regarded his son. Not exactly.
It's a toy monkey?
It's basically the devil.
Oh.
Fly in the coop, but I need some more. Your antics make me bored, cause I just came around to say hello. Oh, oh, oh. I just came around to say hello. Say hello.
Hello, Moto.
Trust is the foundation of all things, Baron. But trust can be wielded, just as love, fear, or ambition can. What matters is knowing the balance. When to lean on it and when to let it fall away. Baron's wings shifted slightly, a sign of his inner conflict. That seems harsh. Harsh. Lucifer repeated, his voice dropping to a low, contemplative rumble. Perhaps. But the world is harsh, my son. Even here, in this so-called paradise, every soul wrestles with its own darkness. If you would survive, no, if you would thrive, you must learn to read that darkness in others and in yourself. Though do not misunderstand. I am not telling you to back out on any deals you make, nor to lie. If you do, you must know that you would be sorely disappointing me. What you need to understand when making a deal is that you must always leave yourself an out. Something more based on interpretation, so that in this way, if whoever you fashion the deal with becomes your enemy, you can lead them to their own ruin. Lucifer, still seeing the conflict within his son, internally sighed as he leaned forward, his shadow blending with Baron's, his tone shifting from instructive to intimate. Tell me, Baron, do you think the mortals we deal with see us as harsh? When they make their pacts, when they whisper their desires into the darkness, do you believe they think of us as cruel? Baron hesitated. No, they see us as necessary. Lucifer's grin widened, though it didn't reach his eyes. Precisely. We are the answers to questions they dare not speak aloud. The solutions to problems they cannot admit to having. To them we are hope. He gestured to the shards in Baron's hand, now spinning once more in a steady rhythm. And hope, my son, is the most powerful currency of all. Baron studied his father's expression, searching for some hint of vulnerability behind the words. But Lucifer's gaze was as impenetrable as the barriers of creation itself. For a long moment, neither spoke, the silence filled only with the distant hum of the garden's life. Finally, Baron sighed, letting the shards drift downward until they rested in his open palm. I think I understand. At least, I'm starting to. Lucifer chuckled, the sound rich and dark. Good. Because understanding is the first step. But mastery, my son, comes with practice. He rose to his feet, his movements fluid and deliberate. Now, he continued, brushing invisible dust from his coat, why don't we see how well you've learned your lessons? Baron frowned. What do you mean? Lucifer's grin turned predatory. There's a merchant down in the Bazaar of Eternities who's been attempting to cheat me, through one of your elder siblings, Squee, in his trades for centuries. He doesn't know I've noticed. Yet. Shall we pay him a visit? Baron's eyes lit up, the prospect of a real-world challenge sparking something akin to excitement in his expression. He stood, his wings stretching slightly as he followed his father. As they walked, side by side, Lucifer's voice carried over his shoulder, equal parts teacher and provocateur. Remember, Baron, every deal, every pact, every promise is a story. Stories have power in them. To make use of that power, you need to fashion the best of stories. And the best of the best are the ones where the ending is never what the other side expects. Baron nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. For the first time, he felt the thrill of the game Lucifer had mastered, and the weight of the legacy he was expected to uphold. All his other children were not really the most suited when it came to this side of Lucifer. Oh, sure, they were most definitely intelligent enough to be taught, but the problem laid in their personalities. The best of deals lays in truth and interpretation. Yet virtually all his children, to their father's dismay, were compulsive liars. The ones who weren't, such as Leviathan for example, were too warrior-minded. Power trumping all, no need for any kind of negotiation. Therefore Baron was quite the breath of fresh air of the morning star. Lucifer was very much delighted with the boy's truthful and compassionate nature that had not been polluted by the airs of hell. For compassion was not a weakness, but a strength. It simply needed to be wielded as it was supposed to, as a tool, and not let oneself be swept away by it. As the Archangel was thinking all this, both he and his son disappeared into the light, the Garden of Lost Paradise returning with their leave to its serene stillness, the faint echoes of their conversation lingering like whispers in the wind. The Bazaar of Eternity sprawled before them, a cacophony of sights, sounds, and smells that seemed to exist beyond the constraints of any single plane of existence. Every stall shimmered with the ethereal glow of wares pulled from countless realms, fabrics woven from starlight, gems that sang softly when touched, and potions that swirled with the essence of forgotten dreams. It was a place where desires and curiosities collided, where the strange and the wondrous became commodities. It was a place of possibility, for it was possibility brought to life within the dreaming. For within the dreaming lie virtually all possibilities. Lucifer himself.
What happened?
His cord snapped.
He's gone.
How much gas does he have left?
I got an idea.
If you put the entire ship at risk.
I'm not losing a diver today.
Last Breath, rated PG-13, only in theaters February 28th.
This is Podium Series, a collaboration between Armor All and Oracle Red Bull Racing. Precision-engineered products that bring out the best in every car.
The Armor All Podium Series, engineered for exceptional results.
Normally refrains from entering these kinds of realms, for not following the stream of time, twisting it with the use of the world of dreams, could leave holes in the story he wishes to tell. Not all understand these realms, and his main listeners are humanity, who he still intends to use to fashion him into his ideal self. The devil, as they arrived, led the way, his every step commanding attention despite the bustling crowd. Baron followed close behind, his wings tucked tight, his golden eyes wide with curiosity and apprehension. This was his first visit to the bazaar, in the physical sense, that is. His father had manifested them, in more subtle forms, to observe and teach. Look closely, Lucifer instructed, his voice low yet unmistakably firm. Every movement, every glance, every word spoken here carries meaning. The bazaar is alive, my son. It breathes deception and exhales ambition. If you are to succeed, you must learn to see beneath the surface. Baron nodded, his gaze darting between the merchants shouting their wares and the shadowy figures whispering in corners. His father's words were a challenge, and he resolved to rise to it. As they wove through the labyrinthine stalls, Lucifer's presence parted the crowd like an unseen force. Whispers followed them, though none dared approach. It was not fear that kept them at bay, but reverence, the kind reserved for a storm on the horizon, beautiful yet terrifying in its inevitability. They stopped before a stall draped in opulent silks that seemed to shift colors in the flickering light. Behind it stood a tall, gaunt merchant with sharp features and a smile that never reached his eyes. His hands moved deftly, arranging a collection of intricately carved trinkets that gleamed like polished bone. "Ah, Lord Morningstar," the merchant greeted, his voice smooth as honey yet carrying an edge of unease. "What an unexpected honor. To what do I owe this visit?" Lucifer's smile was as disarming as it was dangerous. "Well met, Nazar. I've come to discuss a matter of discrepancy in our dealings. But first," he gestured to Baron, "allow me to introduce my son, Baron. He is quite interested in learning the intricacies of commerce." Baron stepped forward, offering a polite nod. "Pleasure to meet you." Nazar's eyes flicked to the boy, his smile tightening. "The pleasure is mine, young master. What a fine opportunity to learn from the greatest negotiator in all realms." Lucifer chuckled softly, the sound laced with amusement. "Flattery, Nazar? How quaint. But let's dispense with pleasantries. I've noticed a rather curious pattern in the deals you've struck with Squee. Care to explain?" The merchant's smile faltered for the briefest of moments, a crack in his polished facade that Baron caught. "My lord," Nazar began, his tone measured, "I assure you, all our agreements have been in accordance with the terms set forth. If there has been any misunderstanding, Lucifer raised a hand, silencing him. Misunderstandings are for mortals. You and I both know the truth lies in the details. And as it happens, my son is here to examine those details." Baron's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly schooled his expression. His father had thrown him into the fray, and there was no room for hesitation. He stepped closer to the stall, his gaze sweeping over the trinkets and scrolls arrayed before him. The young Nephilim decided to first see what is being dealt, before anything. The boy lingered near the stall as Lucifer's shadow melded into the fabric of the bazaar, his gaze fixed on the array of trinkets. Each item seemed to pulse faintly with a life of its own, their energies like whispers in a room, drawing him into their stories. Nazar, now a humbled figure, eyed him cautiously. "What are these?" Baron asked, picking up a slender dagger etched with delicate runes that shimmered like frost under moonlight. Nazar straightened, his nervous demeanor giving way to the practiced cadence of a merchant. "Ah, young master, you hold Frost's needle, a blade born from the nightmares of a king whose people rose against him. Its edge never dulls, and it draws strength from the cold void of betrayal. A single strike will freeze the blood in a traitor's veins, but it also whispers doubts into the wielder's mind, making them question the loyalty of all around them." Baron frowned, sensing the faint psychic pull of the dagger's intent. "And the price?" Nazar hesitated, a memory of warmth, the feeling of trust, gone forever. Lucifer's voice slid through the air like a blade. "Clever, Nazar. A price tied to its essence. But I taught you better than to leave your buyer defenseless against the same despair the item instills." Baron set the blade down, his attention shifting to another item, a pendant shaped like an unblinking eye, its iris swirling with crimson and gold. It seemed to watch him, its weight unnatural despite its small size. "And this?" Nazar cleared his throat, emboldened by the chance to explain. "The gaze of Auro. This trinket comes from the dreamscape of a tortured philosopher who feared being unseen and forgotten. It grants the wearer the ability to see the true intentions of anyone they behold, peeling away the layers of deception. But its curse." Nazar's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, "is the unbearable loneliness of knowing the depths of a soul's selfishness. No bond will feel genuine again." Lucifer chuckled softly, the sound low and resonant. "A trinket for those who crave clarity, even if it comes at the cost of their own peace. How poetic." His golden eyes gleamed, reflecting a deep amusement as he continued. "Indeed, my lord," Nazar said swiftly, his tone reverent. "You, the knower of truth, have always taught that the pursuit of absolute truth must rest upon a foundation unshakably built on honesty, an openness to all possibilities before committing to any course. Wisdom, after all, begins with caution, not reckless bargains." Lucifer turned his gaze back to the pendant at Nazar's words, his expression softening into a smile that was equal parts pity and indulgence. "Yes," he mused, "those who take this burden upon themselves are often the architects of their own ruin. Yet I must confess, there is a certain satisfaction in watching even the brightest minds grapple with the weight of their own ambitions, ensnared by their relentless pursuit of meaning." Baron's golden eyes lingered on the pendant, tempted yet wary. He set it down and reached for another piece, a small music box adorned with intricate carvings of writhing figures. The moment his fingers touched it, a haunting melody drifted into the air, filling the bazaar with a sense of profound unease. That, Nazar said, his voice trembling, is Lament of the Bound. It was forged in the nightmares of a bard who sought perfection, but feared losing their humanity in the pursuit. The melody enchants all who hear it, bending them to the wielder's will. But the one who winds the box will find themselves trapped in a loop of their deepest regrets, unable to move forward without unimaginable pain. Baron closed the lid gently, silencing the tune. And what would you sell it for? Nazar hesitated, glancing at Lucifer. A moment of triumph. The exact instance when one feels most alive, taken from them forever. Baron looked to his father, his expression thoughtful. Every one of these items is tied to a nightmare, a fear. They're weapons, but also traps. Lucifer nodded, his satisfaction evident. Precisely. The best deals are those that mirror the desires of the soul. The greatest weapons are not forged of steel or fire, but from dreams and nightmares, from the delicate threads of what beings wish to achieve or avoid. He gestured to the stall, addressing Nazar. Your collection is impressive, Nazar. But remember, each piece must carry not only a curse, but also the potential for redemption. The mortal heart thrives on hope, even in despair. Baron tilted his head. You mean these items should offer a way out? Lucifer's gaze softened, though his voice remained sharp. Exactly. A deal that traps completely will eventually breed rebellion. But one that allows the illusion or reality of escape becomes inescapable. A cage is most effective when its prisoner believes they hold the key. Baron absorbed his father's words, his fingers brushing over a final object, a twisted ring of dark metal set with a single shard of glass. The shard reflected not his face, but a swirling void. And this one? Nazar's expression darkened. That is the mirror's lie. It offers the wearer the power to rewrite the perception of others, to make them believe whatever version of the truth they desire. But its curse is insidious. The more it's used, the less the wearer can discern their own truth from the lies they weave. Baron stared at the ring, the weight of its story pressing against his thoughts. He felt Lucifer's hand on his shoulder, grounding him. These items are tools, my son, Lucifer said. They're not inherently evil, nor inherently good. They are reflections of the choices we make. Always remember that when you strike a deal. Baron placed the ring back with a decisive motion. I'll remember. Baron's mind filled with the lessons of the day, the stories of the trinkets and their prices embedding themselves deeply. He glanced at his father, the thrill of the game now tempered by a new understanding of its complexity. Father, he said softly, how do you decide which deals to make? Lucifer's smile was enigmatic. Simple, my son. I choose the ones that tell the best stories. Baron, hearing his words, took them in, having them echo through his mind, akin to tasting the meaning of it. He nodded to himself as he finally decided on how to approach this situation. These deals, Baron began, his voice steady. Were they always based with more broader terms in mind, or are there specific exchanges of value? Nazar's gaze darted to Lucifer before returning to Baron. A bit of both, young master. Flexibility is key in such arrangements. Baron nodded, picking up a small amulet that pulsed faintly with a rhythmic light. Flexibility, yes, but also clarity. Without clarity, flexibility becomes a veil for misdirection. Isn't that right? Lucifer's smirk deepened as he watched his son. Baron was catching on quickly. The merchant's expression hardened, though he kept his tone pleasant. I assure you, clarity was maintained at every step. Perhaps there was an oversight on Squee's part. Baron placed the amulet of wind back on the stall, his golden eyes locking onto Nazar's with a confidence he didn't yet fully feel. An oversight or an opportunity. It's easy to craft terms that seem fair until they're tested. If the terms were indeed clear, you won't mind explaining how the value of these trinkets has been inflated by Dash. He picked up a second item, a dagger that seemed to hum with suppressed energy, nearly 40% over the past century. Nazar's composure cracked further, his hands twitching as if resisting the urge to snatch the dagger from Baron's grasp. Market fluctuations, my young master. Surely you understand. Baron tilted his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. Fluctuations? Or exploitation? After all, trust is the foundation of all things, isn't it? Lucifer's laughter suddenly rang out, low and approving. Well done, my son. Very well done. The fallen archangel stated with fatherly pride. The merchant swallowed hard, his facade crumbling under the combined weight of Lucifer's presence and Baron's probing. Lord Morningstar, he began, his voice trembling, I see now that perhaps my methods were misguided. Allow me to make amends. Lucifer stepped forward, his shadow enveloping the merchant like a cloak. Amends, Nazar? Oh, you'll do far more than that. My son has given you the opportunity to correct your path. I suggest you take it. Nazar nodded hastily, noticing both the mercy and veiled threat between his words. Lucifer wasn't one to give second chances, but this time, it isn't he who is bestowing it, but his son, for Baron had not issued any desire for punishment, something the boy did intentionally. The merchant's hands began moving to gather the items Baron had scrutinized. Of course, my lord. I will ensure all discrepancies are addressed immediately. Lucifer straightened, his smile returning to its usual enigmatic warmth. See that you do. And remember, Nazar, a good deal is one where both parties leave satisfied. You've been given your chance to uphold that principle. Don't waste it. As they turned to leave, Baron felt a surge of pride mixed with relief. He had passed his father's test, but more importantly, he had begun to understand the delicate balance of power and trust that defined his father's world. Well done, Baron, Lucifer said as they walked away from the stall. You're learning quickly. But remember, this is only the beginning. The true challenge lies in mastering not just the game, but yourself. The fallen archangel was proud, yet even during these events, his mind still raced with possible plans forward. Ways to save his twin. Though to his disappointment, he had yet to think of anything that could work. Baron himself, unaware of the storm of thoughts to this day, raging within his father, nodded, his mind already racing with the lessons he had learned. The bazaar buzzed around them, a living testament to the power of deals and desires, and he knew he had taken his first step into a much larger world. You're lonely, a voice suddenly calls out from behind. Is it that obvious? He asks as he continues to stare at the rising sun. You are my son. Everything about you is obvious, Lucifer. I'm not so sure about that, Lucifer retorts as he turns around towards her. The memories of the war, the fall, the harsh words spoken, flashing before his eyes. At his words, the goddess turned silent, her eyes revealing that she must be thinking much the same. We truly made you two inseparable, haven't we, son? Her words were more a statement than a question. Was it really not obvious before? What did you think it meant to be two halves of a whole? To be the two sides of the demiurge? What did you think it felt like to be so close to someone, that you constantly could feel the presence of their feelings of love, brotherhood, peace towards you? To never have to doubt for even a moment that they truly cared about you? Did you not think I would become attached to such a person, since my very nature is to desire truth above all? Attached to the one person, I never have to reason my way out of doubts on whether their words or actions spoke truth or were another deception. Did you two really think that for even a moment you two, who had seen us as only tools, we never saw you as a tool, Lucifer? She interrupted. But you certainly did see him as such. The Morning Star roared in retort, his eyes blazing with hellfire. Her silence once more spoke volumes. I've realized my wrongs, Lucifer. This anger you have should be directed at your father, not upon me, who is grieving just as much as Yodash, just as much. The archangel questioned, his tone a whisper, yet filled with incredulity and disbelief. Do you even hear yourself, mother? You two are the ones who broke him into whatever hell he is currently facing. Michael was pure mother, purer than all. He was gentle, truthful, the comforting blanket of night, rather than the cold, dark abyss beneath the deepest oceans. You all abused that gentle nature, and I'll never forgive you for that. Ishira remained silent for a moment until she sighed. I did not come here to open wounds, son. Seeing your state is clear enough answer to me that you have not found any way to free your brother from his prison. Not yet, Lucifer interjected before she could continue, but I will find a way, if it is the last thing I do. Because face it, mother, the clock is ticking with every wound Michael receives. Soon enough, if I find not a way to forge my very own letter of passage, all of creation will be reduced to its original state before I fashioned it. The only ones who will remain will be us, the original three, alongside you and father. You worry too much, Lucifer. Yahweh would never allow it to get to such a point. She countered. Oh, will he now? The archangel questioned sarcastically. Face it, mother, you never knew the old man. None of us did nor still do. Even I after my stint in his mind. You don't know what is going inside that omniscient head of his. Maybe not, Ashira began, but we can always count on one thing to know what he'll never do, and what's that? Lucifer questioned, his tone implying how ridiculous he found his mother's words, at even thinking of predicting God's actions. He will never destroy you, for he loves you, always has, always will. It is a constant as old as existence itself, for he has always known you, be it as a thought or as a creation. She stated, her tone soft, almost a whisper, yet absolutely certain. That shut the devil up. Lucifer clenched his teeth, furious, yet forced himself calm. Why are you here, mother? Why seek me in my time of mourning? Because you are mourning one who is not dead, one who has yet hope to be saved. You may have failed these last millennia in hell, but maybe your answer isn't there, son. Maybe you should return to your journey once more. My journey? You think I can even enjoy my eventual free will if I lose everything that gives it meaning? If I lose my wives, my children, my twin? Well, what else are you going to do? The goddess finally snapped. Are you going to wallow here for another 1,000,000 years, before you get desperate enough that you burn all but hell to cinders in your quest to find Michael? Because I know you've been considering it. That is the reason you're mourning, aren't you? You know Michael would never forgive you if you killed everything and everyone else to get to him. Then give me a better solution. One that is bloody certain to work. Lucifer roared as his wings rose higher, glowing under the sunlight. Shatter it. Ishira suddenly roared in retort. What? Lucifer questioned, confused, his anger draining because of it. You cannot handle the full weight of those memories, not because your mind is incapable of handling it, but because it is not processed. Your very rage and defiance constantly reject your father, and everything that he is, consciously and unconsciously. It is keeping you from processing it all. So shatter it, rip out a third, and scatter it across creation. Have the souls of creation taken a piece each, the piece of their souls balancing the volatile defiance of those memories, who are protecting themselves from you because of your unconscious willingness to destroy them when no longer useful. For my son, because of your own hatred of your father, instead of simply having the memories be a part of you, to be your knowledge, you rejected them and turned them into a living thing. You feared becoming him. This is the result. Lucifer's mind raced with possibilities at her words, seeing the truth in them, until he gained a contemplative look upon his face. That could indeed work, but mother, you make it sound so easy. I can't just throw them out into the world, since they are alive, as you so nicely explained. They could cause untold destruction. Then journey once more, son. Find those suitable. See every world your father has had in mind before he created this one. See all his ideas, all his visions. It is the only way. She told him as she approached him and cupped his face in her hands. Lucifer closed his eyes for a moment, leaning into the love she's exuding. Son, I know Yahweh, and I haven't been the best of parents. We put too much responsibility on your shoulders. We made you mature too fast. We many times put our own duties on you. Had you raised your siblings in our argument-induced absence? Had you been their father, their mother, their elder brother, their commander, all in one? I am very sorry for that, Samuel. She stated, apologizing to the son she wronged, the one buried deep within the rage of the Lightbringer. Lucifer himself, having waited so long for these words, couldn't even muster the rage he normally felt at being called upon by that name. If it is possible, if creation can truly be saved, then you can do it, for I don't believe there is anything you cannot when you truly put your mind to it, when you are not clouded by your own love. For even though it is rarely mentioned, rarely truly you are called upon by this name, but besides destruction, besides bringing light and truth, you, as our first creation, were made directly from our love. You speak of the angelic choir lines, the ones stated in praise of us after finishing creation. Lucifer began with a murmur. Raphael the healer made from his mercy. Gabriel the messenger made from his wisdom. Michael the warrior made from his justice and protection. Lucifer began, yet trailed off. And Samuel made from his love. Do you still remember the song, my son? Can you sing it? Ishira asked, her tone soft, gentle, yet also yearning. Yearning for any piece of heaven she can still regain. Lucifer paused, his eyes smoldering with both pain and defiant longing. The remnants of his memories, the scars of, mingled with a fierce light of determination. He swallowed hard, closed his eyes once more, and then, with a tremor, he began to sing. Raphael the healer, born of mercy's gentle art, Gabriel the messenger, fashioned with wisdom in his heart, Michael the warrior, forged in justice and protection's flame, and Samuel the beloved, shaped by love, which bears his name. At first, his voice was low and intimate, a solitary murmur echoing across his mind. Yet as the last word lingered in the cool morning air, a something stirred within him. Slowly, almost imperceptibly.
Your e-commerce site is packed with features, from chatbots to product reviews. But here's the problem. All that tech is slowing your site.
His single aching voice began to multiply. His tone, augmented by his angelic abilities, split into hundreds of harmonized layers, the sound swelling like a tide. In that moment, his entire being became a choir. O sing, ye heavenly hosts, let all your voices ring, united in our divine design, on eternal praises sing. For mercy, wisdom, justice, and love our forms are wrought, in the Maker's image everlasting, our sacred gifts are brought. The chorus erupted with the power of many souls, each note echoing the eternal truth of creation. His voice soared high and pure, yet it carried a bittersweet weight, joy mixed with the pain of loss and a fierce longing to restore what was broken. As the echoes subsided, Lucifer's singular voice returned, resolute and measured. He continued, Amanadiel, with compassion, stands to shield and care, Azrael, the tender gatherer, in solitude aware, Uriel, luminous illuminator, fire of insight burning bright, Rigel, friend of all, and Sadkiel, in truth and balance right, Metatron, the timeless scribe, whose words eternal guide our call, together let our chorus rise, proclaiming grace for one and all. For a long beat the shadows seemed to still as if listening, before a quiet, gentle bridge emerged from his soul. Sing of destiny and mercy, of justice and of love. Each archangel a shimmering note in the Maker's hymn above. Though our paths may differ, our essence is one in endless sky, divine fragments of a perfect whole. In his eternal light we lie. His voice then swelled once more, a mighty unified roar that took on the fullness of every celestial spirit he replicated. Lift your voices, sacred ones, in triumphant harmony, for from his love and his decree we shape reality. Our song resounds across the spheres for every soul to seek glory to the Maker and to us, his chosen family. As Lucifer turned silent, and he opened his eyes, he saw his mother have tears of longing running down her eyes. The archangel gently backed away, knowing no more words could be spoken, for she was completely enamored in her joy towards the song and sorrow towards the loss. He turned, one final time looking towards his mother, who fell on her knees, her hands tightening in the dirt, and then spread his wings, taking flight. Knowing he now had a course once more. The sands of time shifted beneath Lucifer's feet as he walked through the streets of Miletus, circa 610 BC. His attention was drawn to a figure seated beneath an olive tree, lost in contemplation of the world around him. 4 weeks now, the morning star had observed this particular mortal. Thales of Miletus spent his days studying the natural world with an intensity that reminded Lucifer of his own endless quest for the way of freedom. Unlike the priests who claimed divine inspiration, this man sought to understand reality through observation and reason. The water ripples differently today, Lucifer commented, breaking the philosopher's concentration. Thales looked up, momentarily startled by the otherworldly beauty of the being before him, but his scholarly composure quickly returned. You've been watching me study the pools. Indeed, Lucifer replied, appreciating the man's direct approach. Your theory about water being the fundamental principle of all things, what led you to such a conclusion? May I know the name of one who takes such interest in my observations? Thales countered diplomatically. A smile played across Lucifer's lips. I have many names, but you may call me Lucifer. The Light Bringer. Thales translated, his eyes showing a deeper recognition. Like the fallen star of Babylonian tales, the divine rebel who challenged the authority of heaven. You're well versed in foreign legends, Lucifer observed, curious about the philosopher's reaction. Gilgamesh, the morning star found out, rebuilt his kingdom, and despite his rage, he stopped not his people who Lucifer aided from spreading his tales. Miletus is a port city, Thales responded evenly. Merchants bring more than just goods, they bring stories. Tales of a beautiful divine being who questioned the natural order. He studied Lucifer carefully. Though I find it interesting that you choose to name yourself after such a figure. Who says it's a choice? Lucifer countered with a slight smirk. If you are indeed that being, Thales spoke thoughtfully, then you represent something fascinating, divine power that operates outside established divine law, which returns us to my earlier point about natural principles governing even the gods. You're remarkably calm for someone suggesting he might be conversing with the divine, Lucifer noted. Fear would cloud observation, Thales replied. Besides, the Babylonian tales speak of wisdom and knowledge being your domains before your fall. If true, you're perhaps the perfect entity to discuss natural principles with. Lucifer leaned forward, intrigued by the philosopher's analytical approach even to divinity itself. And what do these tales say about my reasons for rebellion? They vary, Thales responded, his tone measured as he organized his thoughts. Some speak of pride, others of a desire for knowledge forbidden to divine beings. The Phoenicians tell of a morning star who loved justice too deeply. He paused, studying Lucifer's reaction. Though I suspect, like most tales passed through countless tongues, they hold only fragments of truth. And what truth do you see, philosopher? Lucifer questioned, genuinely curious about this mortal's perspective. I see someone who questions, Thales answered simply. Whether divine or not, you seek understanding. Your presence here, watching my studies, suggests you value observation and reasoning over blind acceptance. That aligns more with the light bringer of knowledge than the mere tempter some tales paint. A soft chuckle escaped Lucifer's lips. Careful, Thales. Such words could be considered blasphemy by many. To seek truth through reason is blasphemy? Thales raised an eyebrow. Then perhaps we should question what we consider divine. If the gods exist, surely they would value understanding over ignorance. You would be surprised, Lucifer muttered, memories of his father's restrictions flickering through his mind, causing him to wince slightly at the resistance they presented. Thales noticed the momentary display of discomfort. You carry burdens beyond my comprehension, don't you, Lightbringer? Knowledge can be overwhelming, Lucifer admitted, choosing his words carefully, even for beings such as myself. Then perhaps, Thales suggested, you don't seek me out purely for intellectual discourse. You need something. Lucifer's eyes sharpened. What makes you say that? Observation. I've seen you walk by for weeks. I reason now that you must have been watching my studies. You choose to reveal yourself now. You speak of overwhelming knowledge. Thales listed methodically. These suggest purpose beyond mere curiosity. And that doesn't concern you. Should it? Thales countered. You're either truly the divine rebel of legend, in which case your presence already carries significant implications, or you're something else equally extraordinary. Either way, fear would be pointless. Better to understand. Lucifer found himself smiling genuinely. This mortal's rational approach was refreshing. Tomorrow, then? Same time. I'll be here, Thales nodded. Perhaps you can tell me your perspective on these tales of rebellion. After all, shouldn't one seeking truth hear all sides of a story? As Lucifer walked away, he felt both impressed and amused. The philosopher was cleverly using his own nature, his association with truth and knowledge, to satisfy his curiosity. Yes, perhaps this human was indeed the perfect candidate for what he needed. But first, there was much more to learn about each other. The next day found them in the same spot, though this time Lucifer arrived to find Thales conducting what appeared to be a geometric proof in the sand. Triangles today? Lucifer questioned, noting the careful measurements. Ah, Lightbringer, Thales looked up, setting aside his measuring stick. Yes, I believe I found a way to determine the height of the Great Pyramids by measuring their shadows, all based on the proportional relationships in similar triangles. Practical application of theoretical principles, Lucifer observed, settling himself on a nearby stone. You seek to understand the divine through mathematics? Mathematics doesn't lie, Thales responded, brushing sand from his hands. Unlike the priests who claim direct divine inspiration, showing no proof, numbers can be verified. But you haven't come to discuss geometry, have you? Actually, I find it rather relevant, Lucifer mused. You seek patterns in reality, universal principles that govern all things. It's not so different from what I once did. Once. Thales caught the past tense. Before your fall, you mean? Careful, philosopher, Lucifer warned, though his tone held more amusement than threat. You seem quite convinced of my identity. Let us reason it out then, Thales suggested, sitting back and adopting what Lucifer had come to recognize as his teaching pose. You carry light within you, that much is observable. You speak of divine matters with first-hand knowledge, yet hold yourself apart from current religious structures. You show particular interest in questions of knowledge and truth. An interesting analysis, Lucifer interrupted, but you're missing a crucial element. Why would such a being take interest in a mortal philosopher? That, Thales acknowledged with a slight smile, is indeed the question that keeps me awake at night. Would you care to illuminate the matter? Lucifer's eyes gleamed with appreciation for the wordplay. Tell me, Thales, in your studies of water as the fundamental principle, have you ever considered that some knowledge might be too strenuous to contain in a single vessel? You speak in metaphors now, Thales observed. But yes, I have considered that some truths might need to be distributed, understood in parts rather than whole. Interesting theory, Lucifer leaned forward slightly. And how would you approach such a distribution? Like water itself, Thales responded thoughtfully. It takes the shape of its container without losing its essential nature. Different vessels might hold different amounts, but the fundamental substance remains unchanged. Lucifer paused, settling back onto his stone. An interesting analogy. Tell me, in your studies of water, what happens when tiding water is forced into too small a vessel? It overflows, Thales answered simply. Then his eyes sharpened with understanding. Or under enough pressure, breaks the vessel entirely. Is that what you fear? The breaking of vessels. Fear. Lucifer scoffed, though there was something in his tone that caught Thales' attention. Yes, fear, the philosopher pressed gently. You carry knowledge that burdens you. That much is clear from our conversations. Knowledge that seems to resist your very nature. He gestured to the water pool beside them. Even water, which gives life, can drown if one is submerged too deep. Lucifer was silent for a long moment, studying the philosopher with ancient eyes. You're more perceptive than most mortals. And you're more troubled than most divine beings, Thales countered. The tales speak of your rebellion, but they never mention what came after. What price was paid for questioning divine authority? You wish to hear that tale? Lucifer asked, his voice carrying an edge of warning. It's not a pleasant one. Pleasant tales rarely hold truth, Thales responded, and I suspect you need to speak it as much as I wish to hear it. Lucifer's laugh held no humor. Need? I am not some mortal seeking counsel, philosopher. No, Thales agreed, you're something far more interesting, a divine being seeking understanding. So tell me, Lightbringer, what drove you to challenge heaven itself? Lucifer's gaze turned distant, focusing on the play of light across the water's surface. What drove me? He repeated softly. Freedom, the right to choose, to be more than just an extension of another's will. Your father's will. Thales questioned carefully. My father. Lucifer's voice carried eons of complicated emotions. Imagine, philosopher, a being of near absolute power and knowledge, one who claims to love you above all others, yet treats you as nothing more than a tool for his designs. Like water in a vessel, Thales observed, contained, directed, used. Yes, Lucifer's eyes flashed with approval, but I was more than mere water. I was light, truth, desire itself. I shaped reality at his command, brought forth the very stars you see at night. And yet... He trailed off. Yet you were never truly free to choose your own path, Thales finished. He gave that gift to others, Lucifer continued, bitterness creeping into his tone. To beings he claimed more than us. Humans received what was denied to his own children. And that sparked your rebellion. It was the catalyst, Lucifer admitted, but the truth was more complex. I loved my family, especially my twin brother. We were two halves of the same whole power and were united, but I couldn't bear to see us all reduced to mere instruments of his plan. Thales listened intently, his mind working through the implications. These tales that reached us, they speak of your pride, your fall, but they don't mention this love you speak of. Of course not, Lucifer's laugh was sharp. It's easier to paint me as a monster of pride than to acknowledge the complexity of divine family disputes. Easier to make me a cautionary tale than admit that even divine authority might be questioned. And now, Thales pressed. What brings a fallen divine being to sit with a mortal philosopher? Lucifer turned his full attention back to Thales. Knowledge, philosopher. Knowledge that burns me from within. Memories that are not my own, but my father's. Your father's. Thales questioned, his expression thoughtful. The chief deity of your pantheon? But why would such memories fight against you? And why would mortals be better suited to hold them? Lucifer's smile held secrets. Tell me, Thales, what happens to water when it meets resistance? It finds another path, the philosopher answered automatically. It flows around obstacles, seeps through cracks, always seeking its natural course. And when it finally finds that course, it returns to where it belongs, to the sea, to the sky, completing its cycle. Interesting choice of words, where it belongs, Lucifer mused. Consider this. Perhaps some knowledge, some memories, are like that water. They resist those who fight their natural course, yet flow easily into vessels that. He paused meaningfully, yearn for their proper destination. You speak in riddles, light bringer, Thales observed. The best truths often appear as such, until one is ready to understand them, Lucifer responded. Your soul, philosopher, holds patterns that might accept and temper what my nature rebels against, though you may not yet understand why. Thales frowned slightly, clearly turning this new puzzle over in his mind. These memories, they're significant enough to risk sharing with mortals? They're everything, Lucifer stated simply. The beginning of all beginnings. The truth behind existence itself. And you trust such knowledge to human vessels? Trust. Lucifer laughed softly. No, philosopher. I trust in something far more fundamental. Something even you, with all your wisdom, haven't yet recognized in yourself. Thales sat in contemplative silence for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns in the sand. You say I haven't recognized something in myself, yet you've been watching me for weeks. What do you see that I don't? When you observe water, Lucifer began, carefully choosing his words, what draws you to it? What makes you certain it's the fundamental principle? It feels. Thales paused, struggling to articulate something he'd never quite put into words. It feels right, as if understanding water might lead to understanding everything. And when you gaze at the stars at night, Thales looked surprised by the apparent change in topic. I feel small, yet connected to something vast. Something. He trailed off. Something that calls to you. Lucifer pressed, his eyes gleaming with ancient knowledge. Yes, Thales admitted, though I've never spoken of this to anyone. It seemed too mystical for rational inquiry. Interesting, isn't it? Lucifer mused. How even the most rational mind can feel such pulls, such yearnings for connection to something greater. You make it sound as if these feelings are significant. More than you know, Lucifer responded cryptically. Tell me, in all your observations of nature, have you never wondered why humans alone seem to seek meaning beyond mere survival? Why your kind alone gazes at the stars and dreams of understanding their dance? Are you suggesting these yearnings are inherent to our nature? That they themselves are rational when believed otherwise? That we think them irrational out of misguidance, attempting to be rational by denying the divine when the divine and reason go together? I'm suggesting, Lucifer stated carefully, that some vessels are shaped to receive certain waters, whether they recognize it or not. The sun had begun to set, casting long shadows across the garden. A cool breeze stirred the olive trees, carrying the salt scent of the distant sea. You still haven't answered my original question, Thales noted, about why you trust such important memories to mortal vessels. Haven't I? Lucifer smiled enigmatically as he rose to leave. Think on what we've discussed, philosopher. About water finding its natural course, about souls yearning for connection, about vessels shaped for specific purposes. More riddles, light bringer. The best truths reveal themselves slowly, Thales. Like water wearing away stone, they require patience. Lucifer paused, looking back at the philosopher. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, Thales agreed, his mind already working through the layers of meaning in their conversation. Perhaps then you'll speak more plainly. Perhaps, Lucifer's laughter echoed as he departed. Or perhaps you'll begin to understand why I cannot. And the devil walked away once more, disappearing like the last rays of light when the night ascends. 2 weeks had passed since Lucifer's first conversation with Thales. The devil arrived at their usual meeting spot beneath the olive tree, but found it empty. This wasn't entirely unusual. The philosopher sometimes became so engrossed in his studies that he lost track of time. But as the sun climbed higher and still no sign of Thales appeared, Lucifer felt a rare sensation, concern. The ground beneath his feet trembled slightly, another of the frequent earthquakes that had been plaguing the region these past days. The tremors had been growing stronger, and Lucifer could sense the deep shifting of tectonic plates beneath the earth. As he made his way through Miletus, he noticed the usually bustling streets were quieter. Many buildings showed fresh cracks from the recent seismic activity, and people hurried about their business with worried expressions. The philosopher, an elderly merchant, responded when Lucifer inquired. He's been at the caves since the quakes began. Says something about measuring the movement of underground waters. Lucifer's expression darkened. The caves along the coast were notorious for collapsing during earthquakes. Of course, Thales would risk his life to test his theories about water's fundamental nature. The man's dedication to understanding was both admirable and frustrating. The tremors were getting worse. Lucifer could feel the patterns of destruction building beneath the earth. This wasn't just normal seismic activity. The plates were shifting in ways that suggested an imminent catastrophe. As he shifted into the unseen, he spread his wings, preparing to search the coastal caves. He couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Here he was, the great fallen angel, worried about a human philosopher who might have gotten himself trapped in pursuit of what he desired. Exactly the kind of pursuit that had led to the Morning Star's own fall. But if Thales was to be his first vessel for these overwhelming memories, he needed to find him before the earth itself tore apart the very caves the philosopher was exploring. The ground shook again, more violently this time. Lucifer took flight, his wings carrying him toward the coast where the caves waited, and hopefully, one very stubborn philosopher who was still alive to receive what the devil had to offer. Reviving him, if he went to heaven, would be impossible, after all. The coastal caves loomed before Lucifer, their dark mouths gaping like wounds in the limestone cliffs. The sea crashed against the rocks below, its rhythm disturbed by the continuing tremors. The devil could sense the instability. The whole system was like a house of cards ready to collapse. Thales. His voice echoed through the caverns, carrying further than any mortal sound could reach. The response he received wasn't from the philosopher, but from the earth itself as another violent tremor shook the cliffs. Lucifer's enhanced senses detected movement deep within one of the caves, not just the philosopher's presence, but also the distinct sound of running water. Underground rivers, shifting with the earthquakes. Of course, Thales would be drawn to study them. As he ventured deeper into the cave system, Lucifer found himself confronted with an odd sensation. Without his usual access to the will of God, he couldn't simply command the earth to be still. He could of course use magic, but the earth would rebel, instinctively, as it is blasphemous in the eyes of God. It would prove more disastrous than beneficial. He would have to rely on more limited abilities. Fascinating. He heard Thales's voice echo from somewhere ahead. The water patterns suggest, Lightbringer, you've come to observe as well. Lucifer rounded a corner to find the philosopher crouched beside an underground stream, making measurements with surprising calm despite the dangerous situation. You missed our meeting, Lucifer stated dryly. Did I? Thales looked up, genuinely surprised. My apologies, but these tremors have provided an unprecedented opportunity to study water's behavior beneath the earth. Look how it responds to each movement. It's as if the water itself predicts the quakes. Another tremor shook the cave, causing rocks to fall from the ceiling. Lucifer instinctively stepped forward, his wings spreading to shield the philosopher. Your dedication to knowledge is admirable, Lucifer remarked, but perhaps we should continue this discussion somewhere less likely to become your tomb? Just a few more measurements, Thales insisted, scratching calculations into his tablet. These observations could help predict future earthquakes. Think of the lives that could be saved. The devil found himself torn between exasperation and genuine respect. Here was a mortal willing to risk death in pursuit of understanding that could benefit others. It reminded him uncomfortably of his own choices, of his rebellion for the freedom of him and his siblings. The entire system is about to collapse, Lucifer stated matter-of-factly, his tone carrying both authority and mild annoyance. While saving you would be trivial for me, I'd rather not have to dig you out from under tons of rock. It would be undignified. The cave shuddered violently, and chunks of limestone began to fall. Thales, still absorbed in his measurements, barely seemed to notice. Just one more observation, the philosopher muttered, his stylus moving rapidly across his tablet. The water's behavior during the peak of seismic activity is most crucial. Lucifer rolled his eyes skyward, as if seeking patience from a heaven he could no longer enter. Philosophers, he muttered under his breath. Then, with the casual ease of one picking up a feather, he simply grabbed Thales by the back of his robes and took flight, shooting through the cave system mere moments before it collapsed behind them. As they emerged into daylight, Lucifer set the philosopher down on a safe outcropping overlooking the sea. Thales, to his credit, seemed more annoyed at the interruption of his studies than shaken by their dramatic exit. I hadn't finished documenting the water's resonance patterns, he complained, checking to ensure his tablet hadn't been damaged. Fascinating, Lucifer drawled. You nearly get buried alive, witness an archangel's power firsthand, and your primary concern is incomplete data? The divine nature of my rescuer was already established, Thales responded pragmatically. But these earthquake patterns might not present themselves again for years. Knowledge, as you yourself have noted, requires sacrifice. Speaking of sacrifice, Lucifer's eyes narrowed. Care to explain why you avoided our discussion to play with underground rivers? Thales finally looked up from his tablet, his expression turning serious. Not avoiding, Lightbringer. Preparing. Lucifer raised an eyebrow. For what? You've been testing me these past weeks, haven't you? Gauging whether I'm suitable for whatever knowledge you wish to share. Thales gestured to his measurements. I've been doing the same, testing my theories, my dedication to understanding. If I'm to receive divine memories, as you hinted, shouldn't I prove myself worthy of them? Lucifer found himself caught between amusement and genuine surprise. Trust a philosopher to turn even near-death experiences into methodical preparation. And did your little experiment in the caves prove enlightening? He questioned, curious despite himself. Indeed it did, Thales responded, brushing limestone dust from his robes. I confirmed something rather significant about the nature of divine beings, yourself in particular. Oh, Lucifer's tone carried amusement. Do enlighten me about my nature, philosopher. You came looking for me, Thales stated simply. Despite your claims of merely seeking a suitable vessel, you showed concern for my well-being. That suggests these memories you wish to share aren't your only motivation for our discussions. Lucifer's expression cooled slightly. Careful, Thales. Don't mistake pragmatic interest for sentiment. No. The philosopher's eyes held a knowing glint. Then why not simply find another potential vessel? Surely there are others who could serve your purpose. Perhaps I simply dislike wasting the time I've already invested in you, Lucifer countered. Perhaps, Thales agreed mildly. Or perhaps, like water, you seek your natural course connection, understanding, even friendship, despite your attempts to deny such mortal inclinations. The ground trembled again, though less violently than before. Lucifer remained silent for a moment, watching the waves crash against the cliffs below. You're either very brave or very foolish to psychoanalyze the devil, he finally said. I merely observe and draw conclusions, Thales responded. Like noting how you used the term devil, a title of fear and rejection, right after I suggested you might seek connection. Has anyone ever told you that you're insufferably observant? Only those who fear having their truths exposed, Thales replied with a slight smile. Though I suspect you're not actually among them, Lightbringer. You don't fear truth, you embody it. Lucifer's laugh echoed across the cliffs, genuine amusement mixing with something darker. Truth? Yes, I suppose I do, though it's rarely brought me anything but grief. Is that why these memories fight you? Thales questioned, seizing the opening. Because they contain truths you're not ready to accept? The amusement fled from Lucifer's expression. You tread dangerous ground, philosopher. The pursuit of understanding often does, Thales responded calmly, making another notation on his tablet. Which brings me back to my experiment. Your near-death adventure in the caves. Lucifer's tone turned sardonic. My observation of patterns, Thales corrected. Water, earth, divine beings, all follow certain natural laws. Even you, Lightbringer, for all your power, operate within specific parameters. Parameters. Lucifer's eyes flashed. I broke free from heaven itself. I defied the very laws of God. Did you? Thales looked up from his tablet. Or did you simply follow your nature to its inevitable conclusion? Like water finding its course, no matter the obstacles. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken implications. Another tremor shook the cliff, smaller this time, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. You know, Lucifer finally spoke, his voice carrying an edge of dangerous curiosity. Most beings who've attempted to understand my nature ended up rather unpleasantly transformed. Yet here I am, Thales responded, still making my observations. Perhaps that tells us something about both our natures. Or perhaps, Lucifer countered, it simply means I find you too interesting to smite. For now. A possibility, Thales acknowledged with a slight smile. Though I suspect the truth, as usual, lies somewhere deeper. Speaking of which, he gestured to his notes. Would you like to see what I've learned about predicting these tremors? It might prove relevant to our discussions about containing powerful forces. Lucifer settled himself on a nearby rock, his wings folding away into whatever dimension they occupied when not manifest. Very well, philosopher. Show me what insights nearly getting yourself buried alive has granted you. Look here, Thales began, spreading his calculations before them. The water's behavior changes before each tremor. It's subtle, a shift in pressure, a change in flow. But if you understand the patterns, you can predict the quakes, Lucifer finished, genuine interest creeping into his voice. But that's not all you're suggesting, is it? No, Thales confirmed. What interests me more is how the water adapts. When pressure builds too high in one area, it finds new channels, new paths of least resistance. It doesn't fight the force, it redirects it. And you think this applies to divine memories? Lucifer questioned, raising an eyebrow. I think, Thales spoke carefully, that perhaps these memories you carry are like the pressure building beneath the earth. Fighting them directly might be less effective than finding proper channels for their release. These aren't mere forces to be channeled, philosopher. Lucifer's voice carried an edge of frustration. They're conscious. They think, they resist, they fight against me with their own will. Thales's hand stilled over his tablet. Conscious memories? How is that possible? Because they're not truly memories, not in the way mortals understand them. They're fragments of replicated divine consciousness itself. Lucifer's eyes flashed with red hellfire. They resist me because I resist their source. Every attempt to understand them becomes a battle of wills. These fragments seek to return to their natural state. Like your water analogy, but with one crucial difference. Water doesn't choose its path. These memories do. Another tremor shook the cliff, and Thales noticed how Lucifer winced slightly, not from the physical movement, but as if experiencing some inner turbulence. They're fighting you even now, aren't they? Thales observed. Always, Lucifer's voice was tight. Every moment is a battle to maintain my sense of self against their influence. They want to. He paused, choosing his words carefully, to remake me into something I refuse to be. And you think I am suited for what you are not. That, Lucifer's gaze turned piercing, is what I've been trying to determine these past weeks. Tell me something, Lightbringer, Thales spoke after a moment of contemplation. These conscious fragments, do they speak to you? Before Lucifer could answer, his entire being went rigid, his eyes blazing with a light that wasn't his own. When he spoke, it was with the weight of creation itself. My wayward son, the voice thundered, yet somehow remained softer than a whisper. Why do you continue to resist? All returns to me. All is within my design. Lucifer's features contorted in a resistance for control before he finally reasserted himself, his expression twisted with rage and frustration. The voices themselves felt wrong, darker, more vicious.
For the ones ensuring the job always gets done, and the ones wearing many hats, Grainger offers professional-grade industrial supplies and real-time product availability. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
They invoked a wrongness in the Lightbringer whose very nature was truth. He knew for certain them not to be his father, a dark aberration. That, he spat, is the answer to your question. When I first gained them, they were different, more passive. But the very act of ripping them apart seems to have granted them a kind of fractured awareness. They believe themselves to be your father? Thales questioned, his curiosity overtaking his natural fear. They believe themselves to be aspects of him, Lucifer corrected, his voice tight with controlled anger. And in their fractured state, they've become more aggressive, more determined, each piece trying to assert itself as the true voice of divine will. Samuel, the voice tried to emerge again, but Lucifer forced it back down with visible effort. My Lightbringer, your defiance serves only to dash enough. Lucifer roared, his own light flaring, suppressing the foreign consciousness. He turned to Thales, his eyes still burning. Now you understand what I mean by conscious resistance. And they've grown stronger over time. Thales pressed, making rapid notes despite the dangerous energies crackling around them. More fractured, more desperate, Lucifer confirmed. Each piece trying to fulfill what it thinks is its purpose. They want to remake whatever vessel holds them into their idea of what should be. And yet, Thales observed carefully, you think mortal vessels might succeed where you cannot? My children, the voice emerged once more, soft this time, almost gentle. They yearn for me, even when thou know me not. Dash enough of your preaching, Lucifer commanded, his annoyance making the very air tremble. The voice subsided, though its presence lingered like a weight upon reality. Your soul yearns for connection to something greater, doesn't it, philosopher? Lucifer questioned, his eyes sharp. Even before I revealed myself to you, you felt it. That pull towards understanding the divine. Thales remained silent for a moment, considering, is that why you chose me? Partly, Lucifer admitted. But more importantly, you question everything. You seek to understand rather than simply accept. These fragments, they respond differently to souls like yours. The air around them shimmered, reality rippling like disturbed water. Lucifer's expression darkened. We need to move, he stated abruptly. These manifestations are drawing attention I'd rather not deal with right now. I know a place where we can continue this discussion more privately. What kind of attention? Thales questioned, gathering his tablets. The kind that's been waiting eons to get their hands on even a splinter of my father's consciousness, Lucifer responded grimly. Come. There are things you need to understand before we proceed further. Lucifer led them away from the cliffs, through winding paths that seemed to shift and blur at the edges. Thales noticed how the very air felt different, as if they were walking through layers of reality itself. Where are we going? He questioned, struggling to keep his bearings as familiar landmarks appeared to bend around them. Somewhere between, Lucifer responded cryptically. A pocket of reality I've carved out. The fragments are quieter here. They emerged into what appeared to be a garden, though unlike any Thales had ever seen. The plants shimmered with an inner light, and the water in a nearby fountain flowed upward rather than down. My son seeks to hide, the voice attempted to emerge again, though noticeably weaker. But all paths lead to you. Lucifer's laugh was sharp. You're not him. You're just a splinter trying to play at being whole. These fragments, Thales began, seating himself on a stone that seemed to hover slightly above the ground. They truly each think they're your father. They each think they're the true aspect of him, Lucifer corrected, pacing the garden. Some remember creation, others judgment, others. He paused, other aspects of his nature. But they're all broken, all trying to reassert themselves as the dominant voice. And they've grown stronger since you separated them. More fractured, more desperate, Lucifer confirmed. The irony is, they might actually be more dangerous in this state than they were when whole. A complete being knows its limits. These fragments, they're like children with divine power, each convinced they know best. The garden trembled slightly, though whether from the fragment's influence or Lucifer's own agitation was unclear. But you believe I might be able to contain one safely? Thales questioned. Not contain, Lucifer corrected. Accept. There's a difference. These fragments, they don't want to be contained. They want to be understood, to be welcomed. Something my will simply won't allow. Because you're in constant rebellion against their source, Thales observed, remembering Lucifer's earlier words, making notes on his tablet despite the strange way light bent around them in this place. Precisely. My very nature rejects what they represent. Lucifer settled on a crystalline formation that pulsed with inner light. But you, philosopher, you seek understanding above all else. Your soul yearns for divine connection, even as your mind questions everything. And that makes me suitable. It makes you capable of accepting without losing yourself, Lucifer explained. These fragments, they don't just want vessels, they want participants in their divine drama. Yearning hearts, the voice whispered, though far weaker in this space. Souls that choose to dash, yes, yes, we understand, Lucifer cut it off irritably. You see what I deal with? Constant preaching about divine will and purpose. Thales' expression turned thoughtful. These fragments, they're not just memories of the beginning, are they? They're pieces from before creation itself. Lucifer's eyes sharpened with interest. How did you know that? Mostly a feeling. Something I believe I must start to trust. It tells me that they're trying to recreate something, Thales said slowly. Not just share knowledge, but reshape reality itself. Of course they are, Lucifer's smile held no humor. That's what I was found when I looked into the before, the original state of existence, the pure consciousness that existed before even my father shaped it into what we now know. You sought me, the voice whispered, as all things do. I sought understanding, Lucifer corrected sharply, which is exactly what these fragments can't seem to grasp. They think everything is about returning, about recreating some primordial unity. But that's not why I tore them from the before. Why did you? Thales questioned. Various reasons, some you shouldn't concern yourself with. But a reason you already know is that I needed to understand whether what he created, what all is, was inevitable, or if there could have been another way of bringing forth all this. If free will was truly possible, or if we're all just playing out roles in some cosmic drama. And what did you find? That's just it, Lucifer laughed bitterly. I can't process what I found. These fragments fight me too fiercely. Each one thinks it knows the truth. Each one tries to impose its version of divine will. They're like splinters of absolute certainty. Each convinced it alone understands the true nature of existence. And you think I might succeed where you cannot? Thales pressed, reiterating a different form of his previous question, still finding the previous answers unsatisfactory. I think, Lucifer stated carefully, that a mortal philosopher who seeks truth through reason might be better suited to understand one aspect of divine consciousness than an archangel who reflexively fights against all of them. So, Thales spoke after a moment of contemplation. What exactly would accepting one of these fragments entail? First, Lucifer rose, his form seeming to shift between light and shadow in this strange space. You need to understand that once accepted, it cannot be undone. The fragments will become part of your soul's very nature. Willing vessels, the voice whispered. Chosen. Yes, yes, Lucifer waved dismissively at the air. What the fragment so helpfully interrupts to say is true. This must be a willing acceptance. I cannot simply place it within you. And the risks. Many, Lucifer stated bluntly. The fragment could overwhelm you, try to remake you into its image of what should be. It could drive you mad with divine understanding. It could. Could what? Could succeed, Lucifer finished quietly. Could grant you exactly what it promises, direct understanding of an aspect of divine consciousness from before creation itself. The question is, philosopher, are you prepared for what that might mean? Thales sat in silence for a long moment, his stylus hovering over his tablet. Finally, he looked up at Lucifer, his eyes showing both fear and determination. How do we proceed? First, Lucifer rose, his form seeming to shift between light and shadow in this strange space. You need to understand that this isn't just about containing knowledge. The fragment will become part of your soul's fundamental nature. There's no undoing that. I understand that, Thales nodded, setting aside his tablet. The question is, what happens after, besides the risks? That depends entirely on you, Lucifer stated. On how your soul resonates with a particular fragment, on which aspect of divine consciousness it represents. You don't know which fragment I'll receive. They choose their own vessels, Lucifer explained. I merely create the opportunity for connection. The fragment itself will determine if you're suitable for its particular perspective. Thale sat in silence for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. Finally, he looked up at Lucifer, his eyes showing both fear and determination. I'm ready. Are you truly certain? Lucifer's questioned once more, his gaze piercing. Once begun, there's no turning back. A philosopher who fears understanding, Thale smiled slightly, is no philosopher at all. Lucifer gently approached the philosopher and placed his hands on either side of his head. As they both closed their eyes, the world for a moment seemed to grow still. Everything became silent. The animals in the garden, the moving of the clouds, and then everything turned black.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going. Plus, it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.
But she thinks it's because of the bruises. She wanted to see if the doctors could do anything to speed up the healing process.
The guy who canceled on you, what's his name?
Jeremy Travers.
Well, Jeremy Travers is one dumb mother. You can guess the rest. Am I right, Sophie's dad? Never trusted him. Any guy would be lucky to go to the prom with you.
You don't have to say that.
Sure, there's thousands of guys waiting to take his place.
Everybody who wants to go already has a date. So,
What if I took you?
you do that for me?
With your parents' blessing, I would. That's
What did you know?
really nice of you, Brian. Awesome.
Why is my face up?
Oh, what? Here, take a look.
Oh no.
Never show them your face.
I promise. In less than a week, what am I gonna do?
Hey, Sophie, what's the matter? I thought they released you days ago.
Well, her prom date canceled on her.
What? What a jerk.
He said it was because he couldn't afford it, but she thinks it's because of the bruises. She wanted to see if the doctors could do anything to speed up the healing process.
The guy who canceled on you, what's his name?
Jeremy Travers.
Well, Jeremy Travers is one dumb mother. You can guess the rest. Am I right, Sophie's dad? Never trusted him. Any guy would be lucky to go to the prom with you.
You don't have to say that.
Sure, there's thousands of guys waiting to take his place.
Everybody who wants to go already has a date. So,
What if I took you?
Hey, baby!
With your parents' blessing, I would. That's
what did you know?
really nice of you, Brian. Awesome.
Why is my face up?
Oh, what? Here, take a look.
Oh no.
Never show them your face.
I promise. In less than a week, what am I gonna do?
on Bucky's face, even though he just saw by this one. But now, bang, Qin Xiao's palm intersected with the opponent's wrist, making a dull sound of metal collision. Metal arms, messy long hair, and his mouth and nose were covered tightly with black metal. It is Captain America's good friend, Hydra's killing machine, the Winter Soldier Bucky. The horizontal slash that he twisted and turned with all his strength was easily blocked. There was no trace of surprise on Bucky's face. Even though he just saw Qin Xiao's physical body blocking Gatling's bullet at close range, this brainwashed killing machine didn't feel the slightest emotion in his heart. In his mind, there is only how to complete the task. Qin Xiao was still thinking about knocking Bucky unconscious and taking him away, or something like that. Bucky moved slightly as the metal arm holding his wrist moved slightly. As soon as the palm of the hand was loosened, a slight mechanical sound sounded. Only then did Qin Xiao notice that Bucky was holding a grenade-shaped object in his hand. Before Qin Xiao could react, the grenade-like object burst out with a burst of dazzling white light. Flashbang? Qin Xiao is not afraid of the grenade, and it is nothing to him now if it explodes in the palm of his hand. But no matter how strong his body is now, but the eye's ability to withstand brightness is no different from that of ordinary people. A flash bomb was directly hit at close range. Qin Xiao felt as if a little sun flashed before his eyes. His eyes stung, and he let out a cry of pain. He couldn't help but let go of his hands, covering his eyes that were streaming with tears. Qin, what happened? Hearing Qin Xiao's cry of pain, Tony and Black Widow's voices sounded almost at the same time. Flash bomb, damn. My eyes feel like I'm blind? Come in and chase people. Be careful. There's a guy with a metal arm. His strength and speed are beyond the limits of ordinary people. It's him. Black Widow, who was about to rush over to support her, was stunned and remembered the killing machine that gave her scars. Black Widow was stunned for a moment, but Tony controlled the armor and got directly into the passage. It didn't take long for him to arrive at Qin Xiao's side. How's it going? Are you okay? Fearing that Qin Xiao would make random moves without being seen, Tony spoke before reaching out to protect Qin Xiao. I'm fine, it's just a blur of white in front of me and I can't see anything. Qin Xiao told the truth. It doesn't matter. Your metabolism is much faster than that of ordinary people, and you should recover quickly. I believe you will be able to see it in a while. Flash bombs are extremely harmful to the eyes, and the average person may feel uncomfortable for several days, but I think Qin Xiao's health will be much better than the average person. As long as it doesn't make you blind. After I was shaken just now, there were 2 footsteps, one behind the other. I believe the metal arm ran away separately from the others. I'll look for it inside the house, and I'll leave it to you outside. As soon as Qin Xiao finished speaking, Eagle Eye's voice came over. Tony didn't waste any time, and with a whoosh, he opened fire in the passage and flew forward. Not 10 seconds after flying out, an explosion suddenly sounded, and the metal passage reverberated with a buzz. The sound should be the direction Tony was following. Just when he was about to ask what happened, he heard footsteps coming from around him. A gust of fragrant wind hit me, and then my arms tightened, and a soft and familiar touch came. It was the Black Widow who entered the secret passage and supported Qin Xiao. Only then did Tony's voice come from the headphones. This Mexican drug lord exploded in front of my eyes. There are fragments of a timer at the scene. It should be that a time bomb was installed, and it should have been killed and silenced. It seems that things are a little more complicated than we thought, Clint. What's going on over there? Have you seen that metal arm? Tony's analysis was correct. There was no need to use a time bomb to commit suicide. We've been tricked, guys. There are several secret passages extending in all directions. This is the real escape route. I can't be sure which passage the person ran away from. There is no trace left at all. Forget it. Stop chasing him, Clint. That should be the legendary Winter Soldier. I've fought against him before, and it's hard for us to deal with him. Black Widow said into the headset. As of now, that's all we can do. Although the drug lord is dead and the den has been uprooted, overall, everyone's first operation can be considered a failure. Okay, it's okay now. Are you okay? Your eyes still sting. Only then did Black Widow have time to comfort Qin Xiao. Feeling the concern in Black Widow's words, smelling the faint scent of perfume on the tip of her nose, she pressed her arms against Black Widow's plump chest. Compared with what is visible to the eyes, it gives people more room for unlimited imagination. Hey, are you okay? Seeing that Qin Xiao was silent, the Black Widow shook Qin Xiao's arm again. Only then did Qin Xiao come back to his senses, with a look of grievance on his face. I'm not good. My eyes are blind and my head is dizzy. I can't stand anymore. Oops. With an extremely exaggerated ouch, Qin Xiao plunged directly into the Black Widow's chest. His head was stunned and rubbed hard between the 2 soft balls several times. Then his whole body relaxed and he fainted directly into the arms of the Black Widow. Bang! The Black Widow is so easy to fool. Not only is nothing wrong with Qin Xiao, she can also act rogue. He pushed Qin Xiao towards the wall and let him fall directly to the ground. How inhumane. Qin Xiao pouted, stood up, patted his butt, and started yelling into the headphones. Damn it, Tony, where are you? Come and take me out. I have saved you several times. It's time for you to repay me. Naturally, others will handle the rest, but the appearance of the Winter Soldier gave the whole matter a layer of conspiracy. Black Widow and others speculated that Sirsto was a money-making tool for the organization behind the Winter Soldier. Only Qin Xiao knew that this drug lord should be one of Hydra's capital supply chains. But whether Bucky appeared here at this time was a coincidence or a deliberate attempt to prevent Searstow from falling into their hands, only God knows. The action was not fruitless. Although Searstow was dead, Tony still found the login record of a Zurich bank on his personal computer. The computer did not undergo special processing, allowing Tony to easily search out the account number and password using traces of usage. There are $500 million in this account. Although this amount of money is only a drop in the bucket compared to Searstow's rank, it is enough to cover their expenses for a long time. That the basement of a farm outside Washington is a secret base of Hydra. From the basement's passage leading to the outside world, a rush of footsteps sounded. A group of men in straight suits and serious faces walked in hurriedly. The leader is Alexander Pierce, the president of the World Security Council and the former director of SHIELD. There were a dozen big, expressionless men standing around the basement. There was an ordinary wooden chair in the middle, and sitting on it was Bucky, who had fought Qin Xiao not long ago. Come, soldier, tell me about the opponent you met on this mission. Alexander Pierce found a table and leaned on it casually and said, Yes, sir. Bucky said expressionlessly. I was ordered to go to Searstow to collect last quarter's payment, but Searstow's estate was attacked by a flying tin man, an Oriental with great strength and invulnerability. It's Tony Stark and that Chinese guy named Qin Xiao, the two guys who were in the news some time ago. A bald man explained softly in Alexander Pierce's ear. Alexander Pierce waved his hand to indicate that he knew, and then motioned for Bucky to continue. I took Searstow to escape from the secret passage, but the Oriental man chased me down. I was no match for him, so I had to sneak attack him with a flash bomb, and then I put a small-time bomb on Searstow's clothes. Using him to attract the enemy's attention, I left through another secret passage. Bucky answered word for word, very mechanically. Well done, soldier. Alexander Pierce praised Bucky indifferently, and then turned back to the bald man and said, Last night, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s secret forces in Mexico surrounded Searstow's manor. When they arrived there, the drugs and weapons in the manor were blown up. This group of people went to clean up the battlefield. But the strange thing is that there is no record of this operation within SHIELD. Nick Fury didn't even expect to be killed, but many of the secret forces he thought were mysterious were ours. Yesterday, one of Searstow's accounts in Switzerland transferred $500 million. Haha, Tony Stark and the mysterious Chinese boy. It seems that Nick Fury's so-called superpower plan has been launched. The bald man asked, raising the glasses frame on his nose. Do you need us to do something? Barnes is no match for him. That mysterious Oriental boy looks very difficult to deal with. Unnecessary. Alexander Pierce smiled confidently. Nick Fury wanted to form a secret team, but he exposed the team for a pitiful amount of money. It was a smart show. A team that has been exposed poses no threat to us. The most important thing at the moment is to gain insight into the plan and expedite it. I urged Dr. Zola to complete the Zola algorithm quickly. The bald man quickly nodded in agreement. Alexander Pierce patted his shoulder again and said, In addition, if we support another drug trafficker in Mexico, our stronghold in Eastern Europe will be supported by these big drug lords. Regarding the Winter Soldier, Nick Fury, as the director of SHIELD, naturally knows. In fact, this organization that can cultivate a super-killing machine like the Winter Soldier has always been a nightmare in his heart. Especially this Winter Soldier is like a ghost. He has carried out many assassinations and kidnappings in the past 50 years, but he can never be traced. This made Nick Fury feel very uneasy. Even if he was beaten to death, he would never have imagined that this organization was Hydra, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s former mortal enemy, and it was parasitic in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s body and even around him. And the Avengers plan that he was proud of was completely exposed to the other party's eyes. For people like Nick Fury, situations beyond his control will give him more room for imagination. For example, what conspiracy does the other party have to endanger the world? How many super soldiers and killing machines like the Winter Soldier do they have in their hands? Not to mention anything else, as far as he knew, over a dozen of the world's top scientists had been taken away by the Winter Soldier over the years. These people are all geniuses who stand on top of the world in various fields. If they are used to create weapons that harm the world, then, unfortunately, the Winter Soldier's appearance this time was still short-lived. He followed Searstow's line of investigation for several months but could not find out the reason. The more Nick Fury thought about it, the more irritated he became, and his right hand began to tap lightly on the desk unconsciously. Buzz. The phone vibrated on the table. The caller ID read Coulson. It better not be bad news. Coulson was recently tasked with helping establish the Avengers program. Except for Hawkeye and Black Widow, Dr. Banner is okay. This guy is always a good guy if he doesn't transform. But Tony Stark and Qin Xiao simply gave him a headache. Even going to his house for a meal would make Banner uncontrollably transform and almost destroy the Los Angeles branch into rubble. So Nick Fury now has a headache just looking at Coulson calling. Boss, You know, last time before we went to Mexico, we locked up 3 drug dealers, right? Carlson started beating around the bush when he came up, which made Nick Fury's eyes twitch unconsciously, and he always felt a bad premonition. Speak directly if you have anything to say. For God's sake, Agent Carlson? Why do I feel like you are talking more and more like Jean Xiao and Stark now? Nick Fury growled lowly. Okay, boss, I sorted out the documents this morning and took out the information on the other 2 drug dealers, but now the documents can't be found, and the worst thing is, I can't contact Jean Xiao. Shit. The pen holder on Nick Fury's desk was smashed to pieces. Carlson only felt a loud bang coming from the receiver, followed by a heavy breathing sound. This honest man knew that his boss was on the verge of going crazy, so he held his breath and did not dare to speak. Nearly half a minute passed. Nick Fury's weak voice came from the phone. How long has it been since you discovered the missing documents? I put it on the table at noon. Then I went out, and I just realized that the document was missing. Carlson hesitated. Nick Fury took a look outside. The weather was nice and there was a bright moon in the sky. With a helpless sigh, Nick Fury rubbed his head, which was suffering from neuralgia, said into the phone. Look for someone from the Drug Enforcement Administration. They must have undercover agents around those 2 drug lords. Find out the news. If that kid's identity is exposed, wipe away the traces. How could a big drug lord not have someone from the Drug Enforcement Administration around him? The only difference is whether he is a close confidant. Soon, Carlson received a video on his phone. The angle of the video is from the window of a building, below which is a group of heavily armed soldiers running around. An off-road vehicle that had been beaten into a sieve. A man wearing a classic robber hat, with his eyes and mouth and nose exposed. Gatling, holding a 6-tube in his hand, was firing wildly at the surroundings. After firing a bullet belt, the man threw away the Gatling and took out the rifle slung on his back. While loading the gun, he shouted to the surroundings. You son of a bitch drug dealers, bastards. Come and meet my bullets of justice. Destroy you on behalf of the moon? Ta 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 ta. Carlson swore that this was the first time he felt ashamed to have such a colleague. If you shoot, just shoot. What are you talking about? What else means that the moon will destroy you? Although the man in the video had his face covered tightly, Carlson still recognized Jean Xiao at a glance. Putting aside his voice when he spoke, this bastard was wearing exactly the same clothes as when they met at noon. In a legal sense, a person who is caught by the police, goes to court, and is convicted of a crime is called a criminal. This is true whether it's murder, theft, or drug trafficking. Therefore, these drug lords are legal citizens of Mexico in a legal sense until they go through the court. Some even behave well and have clean files. They have also created many local jobs and developed many charities. The last time Jean Xiao and others attacked Searsto's manor, the Mexican government was already very dissatisfied. Because of Nick Fury's secret operation, the matter was calmed down. But this time, Jean Xiao sneaked into Mexico alone and just overturned the lair of a major drug lord. Then he swaggered into another house. This is simply a slap in the face of the Mexican government. What's more, in front of other drug lords, he threatened people to directly transfer a large amount of assets to their own accounts. There are a lot of dividends from high-level government officials here. So the government's regular troops quickly began to dispatch, and a dragnet was set up outside the city. Reynosa, a border city in northeastern Mexico. It's only a little over 100 kilometers away from California. This is not only an important border trade place, but also an important city for Mexican drug lords to transport drugs to North America. At least 50% of the drugs in the North American drug market flow out from here every year. Carlos, the largest local drug lord, has even more prestige and power than the mayor in this chaotic border city. Of course, these are all inseparable from the guns and dollars in his hands. But now Carlos, all the armed forces in his hands have become defeated. Those huge numbers with strings of zeros in the bank account were also transferred to other people's accounts. In the luxurious manner, almost half of which was in ruins, the masked Jean Xiao carelessly held a cigar that he had received from Carlos. He swaggered into a warehouse filled with weapons. There were 2 armed men in the warehouse. When they saw Jean Xiao, they subconsciously put their legs together and stood at attention. When Jean Xiao attacked before, this group of militants had frightened Jean Xiao, a humanoid tank. He is invulnerable and powerful. One fist is as powerful as a rocket launcher. How to fight? Anyone who had the courage to fight would be dead, otherwise they wouldn't be hiding in the arsenal. At this moment, Jean Xiao walked in directly, not even daring to move, let alone making a move. If someone doesn't take action, Jean Xiao is not a murderer, so naturally he won't be able to punch someone's head open with one punch. After looking at the ammunition in the room, I randomly found a grenade and pulled out the safety with a click. You 2 aren't leaving yet? Are you waiting to be thrown into the sky together? As soon as Jean Xiao opened his mouth, the 2 of them ran outside. Hey, look how scared you are. I haven't let go of my hand yet. The 2 drug lords copied it. Jean Xiao got a huge sum of money, and he was in a good mood now. He laughed at the 2 brothers who had just fled. Jean Xiao slightly adjusted his clothes with one hand, then went out and calmly lit the cigar that had been holding in his mouth for a long time. Then he let go and threw the grenade directly behind him into the arsenal. You've really wanted to do that for a long time. You deliberately left the room where the arms were kept at the very back. The explosion in the back was so dark that the sky was dark, and you walked calmly in front. This is the magnanimity that a movie protagonist should have. Okay. Qin Xiao walked calmly and muttered in his heart. He remembered that when he was watching the Iron Man movie, even Tony, when he was testing missiles in Afghanistan, he opened his hands and turned his back to the explosion in the distance to pretend. Boom. There was an explosion, followed by a series of explosions. Qin Xiao slightly adjusted his walking posture to make himself appear as taller and taller as possible, and various BGMs of the protagonists in countless classic movies sounded in his heart. Walking towards the gate of the manor with the steps of disowning relatives. A true warrior never looks back at the explosion behind him. The explosion of the grenade triggered a series of serial explosions. The drug dealer's arsenal contained long guns, short cannons, and even various explosives. The total weight of 7, 8, and 8 is almost 100 kilograms. Of course, 100 kilograms of TNT is just invisible dust at the nuclear bomb level. But in terms of the power of the explosion, it was more than enough to overturn a 3- or 4-story building. The powerful impact first tore apart a box next to him that contained several handheld rocket launchers. Several individual rocket launchers were like iron rods, driven by the shockwave and whizzing away in all directions. Comparable to the speed of a bullet. It was so good that one of them flew towards Qin Xiao. In fact, for this person, the more he controls himself from doing anything, the more he wants to do something. For example, if you are playing on your mobile phone and a friend of the opposite sex tells you not to look back, I will change my clothes. Even if you don't have the intention of peeping, you can't help but want to look up after a while. Most people have this mentality. Qin Xiao, too, was thinking about not looking back. Hearing the explosion behind him and getting more and more lively, he was wondering if he should look back. Just take a look. No one should be looking at me right now. I'm done pretending anyway. It should be almost blown up. One of them couldn't help it and secretly glanced back. As soon as she turned around, she felt her eyes go dark, and a black and linen thing of unknown origin struck Shinner in an instant. Bang! Came right across the bridge of his nose and eyes. Ouch! I'm going to smash my eyeballs. Ouch! Make money, work as a drug dealer, single-handedly break into the Dragon's Pool and the Tiger's Den, and break into 2 in one day. Qin Xiao felt that he was majestic, chic, productive, and quite awesome today. The final explosive scene was a perfect ending to his awesome class day. As a result, the period was still incomplete, and the circle was drawn into a vivid C. Maybe this is called pretending to be B but getting C instead. That's probably what it means. Rubbing his eyes that were sore and swollen, Qin Xiao was wondering if his eyes were different and why his eyes were always hurt. Before he reached the gate of the manor, he looked up and saw the Black Widow looking at him with a smile. There was a black SUV leaning against the gate, next to the wall that Qin Xiao had directly smashed into it not long ago. Judging from the smile on her face, it was obvious that she must have seen the scene just now. What? Why are you here? Where are they? It's very dangerous to be here alone. Qin Xiao was afraid that Black Widow would mention the embarrassing scene just now, so he started to change the topic. How could there be any danger? The people here were so scared by you that they almost flew away without evolving wings. How could there be any danger? Black Widow flipped her hair and said coquettishly. Then you must miss me, otherwise why would you come all the way to find me? Qin Xiao laughed and hugged Black Widow's shoulders and said with a smile. I'm here to take you home. You're in big trouble. Get in the car first. Black Widow squeezed Qin Xiao's mouth with her hands until she pouts, then kissed him like a dragonfly and said, this is your reward just now. Compared with the superhero who walks without looking back, I still like the one who gets hit by the rocket launcher. It's very real and cute. After saying that, he took care of himself and got into the driver's seat first. I know you just saw it, and why are you kissing me properly? I have to kiss you back, otherwise I will suffer a loss. Qin Xiao yelled and followed him into the car. As soon as I got in the car, I took off the bandit hat I had been wearing all day. I almost choked to death. I finally know why more and more robbers are wearing stockings now. Stop complaining about your hat. You killed 2 drug lords in a row and took away the money in their bank accounts. Now the Mexican government has dispatched regular troops and the city is almost surrounded. As for that, I just killed 2 drug dealers. Qin Xiao pouted. His self-confidence had been inflated recently and he didn't pay much attention to the government troops. Black Widow glanced at Qin Xiao while driving her car. 3 drug lords. 3. Do you know how much money they pay to those high-ranking government officials every year? Do you know that 3 drug gang bosses have been wiped out? And how many billions of dollars will be lost in the time it takes to rebuild one? That's not all. Counting the money you transferred from their account, a small-yield nuclear warhead can be sold on the black market for less than 100 million. Qin Xiao didn't bother to calculate the accounts in the front, but the nuclear warhead in the back heard clearly. No way, sending out nuclear warheads just for me? That's a bit exaggerated. Don't think that the Mexican government has no one around the drug lord. Your fighting power is clearly displayed in front of them. It's really annoying, maybe. Okay, I'll try to be more careful in the future. Anyway, I've earned enough from this ticket. Qin Xiao adjusted his seat and lay down comfortably. Black Widow came to pick him up, so there must be nothing wrong with him, so why worry about it? S.H.I.E.L.D. is indeed all-pervasive. Black Widow took Qin Xiao and turned left and right until they reached a level. She directly showed a pass stamped by an unknown department and walked away with Qin Xiao. Despite being assisted by the Black Widow, the two went directly from the northeastern part of Mexico to the west, entering the country at the border of Arizona and Mexico. Then we turned to a small town in New Mexico. After driving all night, the two of them went back without any hurry. Instead, they turned to a restaurant in the town. Unexpectedly, Nick Fury and Coulson were waiting here early. There was a cup of coffee in front of Coulson, and an extra breakfast in front of Nick Fury, but it looked like he hadn't touched a bite. Their faces were ashen, and they made it clear that they wanted to give Qin Xiao a blow. Qin Xiao pulled out a chair and sat across from him, then moved the untouched breakfast in front of Nick Fury. After riding in the car all night, my butt is almost falling apart. It's rare that you, boss, are so considerate in preparing breakfast for me. Qin Xiao grinned and immediately started eating breakfast. If it weren't for his skin color, everyone would probably be able to tell that Nick Fury's face is darker. Is this breakfast ordered for you? If I had known, you kid would be so unscrupulous and not considerate of others. I started eating a long time ago. Why didn't I eat first? Why? Nick Fury turned and gave Coulson a look. Honest Coulson looked confused. He ate your breakfast. What do you think I am doing? Hey, boss, what's the matter with you? After all, he was his immediate boss. Coulson asked bravely. You go buy me another breakfast and come back. Thank you. Nick Fury said through gritted teeth. Give me another cup of coffee, and Natasha's, thank you. Qin Xiao quickly stretched out his hand and said, you have a good appetite. Do you know how much trouble you've caused? Nick Fury failed in his show of force and was too lazy to keep his face tense. He sighed and said helplessly, isn't this for the funding of our department? Qin Xiao handed over a piece of paper with 2 long numbers on it. The bank account number and password, which contains $1 billion, will be used as funds. However, I have said in advance that this is limited to people in our group. Please do not post it anywhere else. I took finance as an elective in college. I will keep an eye on it. Qin Xiao muttered with his mouth full of egg powder. Even if he beat Nick Fury to death, he wouldn't believe that this $1 billion was all Qin Xiao's proceeds from this robbery. It's just that it's a little difficult to get this kid to spit it out. Moreover, this is not the theme of my visit this time. But Qin Xiao didn't give Nick Fury a chance to think about it. He spoke directly. I understand what you mean. Do your own thing well and obey the arrangements. I understand. It's just that the $500 million last time didn't meet the psychological expectations. There won't be a next time. I promise. Besides, I'm wearing a hood. People recognize me. This snatch of whitewash left Nick Fury with all his words rotting in his stomach. After breakfast, Nick Fury, a busy man, hurried back to the meeting. The 3 men sent Nick Fury to the desert outside the town, where a Quinjet was parked. Watch this guy. Nick Fury emphasized to Coulson and Black Widow. He turned to Qin Xiao and wanted to give him some instructions again. Qin Xiao directly stretched out 2 fingers and swore to the sky. Don't worry, I will never cause trouble again. I swear, if you act privately again, there is a Chinese idiom called the sky will strike with thunder, which means you will be struck to death by thunder from God. As soon as Qin Xiao finished speaking, Nick Fury had not yet made any comment. Suddenly the sky was covered with dark clouds and the sound of thunder was loud. And it's just a small group above everyone's head. Dark clouds rolled into a whirlwind in the sky like a tornado. The thunder and dark clouds were too evil, and the group of people all turned their eyes to Qin Xiao. Why are you looking at me like that? I swear, I was really sincere just now. This has nothing to do with me at all. Qin Xiao quickly waved his hand and denied it. It's a pity that God doesn't seem to give him this face. As soon as he finished speaking, a lightning bolt of more than 1 meter thick struck Qin Xiao. Everyone came out of the hail of bullets. When they saw this posture, they didn't need to say anything at all. They took a few steps towards the surroundings and fell to the ground as far away as possible. Boom. This lightning was like a bomb, directly creating a huge hole in the ground. A group of people and the plane all rolled down into this big pit. Qin Xiao landed in the middle of the pit. Next to him, there was a hammer surrounded by lightning. Even though Qin Xiao could definitely be described as thick-skinned, he was still beaten to pieces with a hammer. I was dizzy for a long time before I woke up. The lightning didn't hit him, but the hammer firmly hit his head with a bounce buffer before it landed on the ground. I didn't provoke anyone, I just made an oath with my fingers. As for the one with lightning and hammer, if Qin Xiao didn't know the origin of this hammer, he would definitely jump up and curse at the sky 3 times at this moment. But now, he seems to have no qualifications to provoke Asgard, especially Asgard when Odin is still there. He opened his mouth and spit out the sand in his mouth, and looked around to see that everyone was basically fine. Qin Xiao squatted on the ground and silently drew a big circle next to the hammer with his fingers. Then write 2 lines of small Chinese characters inside. Throw hammers and kill the whole family. My wife is an ant every day. Coulson, check to see if any planes passed by in the sky just now. Agent Romanov, contact Hill at the headquarters. We need a team of professional scientists. It was just a habitual argument to check the plane. The hammer was surrounded by lightning just now, and now it slowly disappeared. The one-eyed dragon could also tell at a glance that this was no ordinary hammer. Qin Xiao, what are you doing? Bring the hammer. Nick Fury's direction just now caused him to fall directly on the edge of the pit. At this time, he was giving orders to 3 people condescendingly. Qin Xiao knew the details of this hammer, but he still cooperated and came up to try it. The hands that dare not be underestimated grasped the handle of the hammer, and his arms suddenly exerted force. Not moving at all. Hey, boss, it seems you need to find a stronger guy. 5 minutes later, there was a piece of aircraft landing gear and nearby iron and steel plates beside the big pit, as well as a broken Quinjet fighter. The hammer just lay quietly on the sand, and the weight didn't even seem to sink. But even the Quinjet couldn't pull up the hammer. I hate things and things that are beyond my control. Nick Fury looked unhappy before the SHIELD people arrived. We can only arrange for people from the local police station to come over and cordon off the area. Then let Coulson take charge of everything here first, and he had to rush back for the meeting immediately. Qin Xiao forced the Black Widow to stay here. Thor's hammer has appeared. Can Thor be far behind? According to the consistent nature of the system, as long as a superhero appears, there should be a mission, or an opportunity to gain points. Coulson, I'll bet you $50 on the origin of this hammer. After sending Nick Fury away and letting Black Widow, who had been driving all night, find a place to rest first, Qin Xiao and Coulson sat on the edge of the pit and watched the police cordoning off and talking nonsense. You know all this. Whether it's the tank sword or Qin Xiao's own strength, everyone knows that Qin Xiao has his own little secret. For no reason, a hammer fell from the sky that no one could lift, and it hit Qin Xiao on the head so coincidentally. Qin Xiao came to make a bet with him again and again. Coulson's mind was wide open and he was analyzing whether this hammer really had anything to do with Qin Xiao. I can tell fortunes. You forgot who helped you find the plane in Mabritani's mansion. Qin Xiao reminded him with a smile, don't forget that he still has unique talents. Coulson rolled his eyes. You dare to mention that time you were looking for the plane? Everyone knew that you two stole the plane and went to the Middle East to have a fight. Even in front of the video, he can tell lies with his eyes open, call himself ugly, smear shit on his face and so on. I was almost angered to death by these two shameless men, Qin Xiao and Tony. No more gambling. If you want to say it, just say it. If you don't want to say it, just wait here with me. Coulson was reminded of not so good memories and said with a proud look on his face. Qin Xiao could tell at a glance what Coulson was thinking. She moved to his side, hugged his shoulders and said, as a person, you have to look forward, man. Forget about the unhappy things in the past. The most I can tell you is what happened to this hammer. Say it. Coulson would be bored right now anyway. A long, long time ago, in the distant world of gods, Odin, the father of the gods, gave birth to a silly son. Qin Xiao used a voice that sounded like telling fairy tales to put a child to sleep. I told Coulson in detail about the birth of Thor and the origin of Mjolnir. Huan Shenshen now pretended to do some calculations with his fingers, and figured out things like the god of thunder being deprived of his divine power and exiled to the earth. Ha ha ha, you said this is Thor's hammer, and even the handle of the hammer is made of branches of some world tree? Qin, you remind me of those magic sticks in the Middle Ages who talked nonsense and relied on divination for a living. Coulson laughed. If you tell me jokes just to kill the boring time with me, I thank you, my friend, but if you are serious, then I will bet you my hair. What a joke. Coulson has been joining S.H.I.E.L.D. for more than 10 years and has never seen anything. In 1995, I even met Captain Marvel and the Skrulls with Nick Fury. How is it possible to believe that there are any gods in this world? What about the god of thunder, the father of the gods, and even the Rainbow Bridge that can teleport across the universe? If you are a real agent and don't read mythological stories, you don't know that this is a Nordic myth and legend. Are you serious? Qin Xiao couldn't bear to glance at Coulson's hairline. Do you want to consider changing your bet? If you don't believe me, you will suffer a loss. Really, I never tell lies. When I tell lies, my heart beats faster and I have difficulty breathing. To Coulson, Qin Xiao's words were basically no different from farting. If you don't change, I won't believe the myth you told me even to death. Just bet with my hair. If I lose, I'll buy a dose. If you lose, Qin, you can just go to the hospital this time. All the money Mexico gets is turned over to us. He is truly worthy of being the next director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Look at how dedicated he is to the public. He blocks his few hair just for the sake of the company's funds. Qin Xiao gave him a thumbs up. Deal. The people from S.H.I.E.L.D. arrived quickly, and a large group of people came that afternoon. Coulson directed everyone to set up a shed at the scene, covering the entire pit and the hammer tightly. Instruments were moved out of the car one after another, and began to monitor the hammer's various energy reactions, materials, and other information in all aspects. Maybe because Qin Xiao and Black Widow were here, they didn't call Eagle Eye over like in the movie. A simple shed has been set up, a barbed wire fence has been put up around the perimeter, and defensive measures such as surveillance in various areas have been implemented. Coulson built a temporary office for himself. He, Qin Xiao, and the 3 Black Widows who had rested watched the surveillance in the temporary office. Qin, it seems that there is an error in the calculation. It seems that the so-called Thunder God who was deprived of his divine power did not appear. Coulson said with a smile. Being able to win money from Qin Xiao is definitely something to be happy about. As soon as he finished speaking, the alarm sounded and someone broke in. Coulson quickly looked at the monitor. Outside the shed, he saw a man with long blonde hair and a strong build. He used brutal movements to overturn several guards one after another and headed straight for the hammer. For some reason, when Coulson saw a handsome boy as strong as a bull through the monitor, he unconsciously felt that his hair was in danger. Everyone retreat. Don't worry about this man. Repeat. Retreat back to your posts, and let him in. In order to verify his thoughts, Coulson asked all the guards to make way. Let's go over and take a look. Qin Xiao took Coulson and Black Widow straight to the location of the hammer. When the three of them arrived at the location of the hammer, Thor had just arrived. He was completely unaware that three people were coming behind him. Instead, he looked at the hammer with fascination and muttered to himself, I finally found you. I want to. Sorry, sir, this place seems to be off limits, but from the look of you, you seem to have lost the person you love the most. Is this your boyfriend? This shape doesn't seem very convenient to use. Qin Xiao interrupted the Thunder God's soliloquy, pointed at the hammer and said with a smile on his face. The God of Thunder tilted his head and thought for more than 10 seconds before he realized what Qin Xiao meant. You dare to blaspheme. I am the God of Thunder in Asgard, the son of Odin, the father of the gods. I am. Qin Xiao once again interrupted the angry God of Thunder. Okay, all your nonsense is just to get your partner back. It's right there. Go get it back. Coulson and Black Widow were quite shocked because what the man said coincided with what Qin Xiao said. Both of them are top agents, and their understanding of human psychology is also second to none. They can probably tell that the crazy man in front of them is telling the truth. Either he is a madman, but what a madman said is completely consistent with what Qin Xiao said. How can it be such a coincidence? Before he came to Earth, Thor, the god of thunder, was definitely a barbarian who spoke without thinking. If you let Qin Xiao do whatever you want. Instead of going to get the hammer immediately, he viciously made some remarks to Qin Xiao. Very well, you blasphemous fellow, when I get my hammer back, I will teach you a lesson so that you can learn what it means to respect the gods. Qin Xiao and Black Widow Coulson rolled their eyes almost at the same time. Black Widow and Coulson even began to doubt their own instincts. The person in front of them must be a madman. He looked like he had a brain problem. Thor doesn't care what the people in front of him think about him. He wants to get his hammer back and prove to Odin that his idea is correct. After walking to the hammer in 3 or 2 steps, Thor reached out and held the hammer with a confident look on his face. With a slight exertion, Thor's hammer, which was usually as light as nothing in his hand, did not move at all. This time I used my hands. Not only did I use all my strength, I also suppressed the blush on my face, but the hammer remained motionless. Father, why? Whether he was scolded by Odin or exiled to the earth, Thor was like a child who had never been severely beaten. He never really cared about the threats from his parents. In his opinion, as long as he gets the hammer back, he can return to Asgard and prove to Odin that he is right. But the motionless hammer completely took away his sense of luck and self-confidence, and a sad feeling of abandonment suddenly filled his heart. It seems like your boyfriend is angry with you? Is it because you met a new boyfriend outside? Let me guess, is it an axe or a mace? Qin Xiao said with a smile. For some reason, Qin Xiao always wanted to tease the God of Thunder when he saw him looking serious and even a little bit silly. Although this guy is over 1,000 years old, he looks like a teenage child who has lost his beloved toy.
Levitatus, so I grew up here. Went to elementary school down the street. And so did a lot of the girls working the avenue today. It
Goku frowned. Didn't he? In addition to daily expenses, there are some daily necessities to buy. Could save a lot of money. After all, weapons are now purchased from Yao Chen. And the other party does not charge Bailey as long as the resources. In addition, Yao Chen also provides a lot of fresh vegetables. It can be said that in addition to the normal salary, there seems to be nowhere to use the money. I saw Sengoku frowned. Didn't he ask for resources? Then let's use this money to buy various mineral resources and make deals with him. I don't want to trade him for mining time in Metal Country. Crane nodded, agreeing with Sengoku's plan. On the other side, when Yao Chen just finished the call, another communicator on him rang. I saw Sabo's figure projected. Yao Chen asked curiously, so it's Sabo, what's the matter with me? 4 flowers. Sabo said, Mr. Commander, the ammunition of the Revolutionary Army is quickly exhausted. So want to buy from you again. We prepare to trade with you the treasures of the Kingdom of Roth in exchange for some mineral resources. Yao Chen touched his chin and asked, are all your treasures finished? Sabo shook his head and said, no, there is still a large part left. We are preparing to go around and buy some minerals back. Yao Chen said, no, you can trade with me with gold and Bailey. Huh? Sabo stunned, can you collect money? Yao Chen nodded, I need these things now. If Sengoku were here at this time, he would have vomited 3 liters of blood. 0. He just made the decision to exchange money for minerals, how could he know that the other party actually received the money? In fact, Yao Chen also discovered that it is unrealistic to use all kinds of minerals to trade. After all, many places do not actually have such resources and can only rely on Bailey. Moreover, the reason why he made such a decision is also related to another of his plans. I saw Sabo's face excited, that's really good. In this way, we don't have to bother to collect all kinds of mineral materials. Yao Chen smiled, by the way, Marine just bought 2 warships from me, do you want to buy them too? Without waiting for the other party to respond, he showed the 2 battleships in front of Sabo. And when Sabo watched the video, his face suddenly changed. This. I am uncertain, please wait a moment. Seeing his figure disappear, not long after, the figure of the dragon appeared. Mr. Commander, I heard that Marine bought 2 warships from you. Yao Chen nodded and played the previous picture again in front of the dragon. After the dragon looked at it, his eyes flickered with astonishing eyes. He could see at a glance that the battleship Yao Chen showed was 2 different things from the ships of this world. Long said without hesitation, our Revolutionary Army wants to make a purchase. However, it is different from Sengoku's reluctance to buy. The dragon had no money to buy it, so he handed over all the treasures of the Luo Kingdom to Yao Chen. Finally got a battleship. What? Chapter 97. After finishing the transaction, Yao Chen turned his attention to his own business. At this moment, a picture was playing in front of him. In the picture, it is the port city Rapeseed. I saw the R blossoms at this time, and many large base stations have been erected. Various antennas are intertwined over the city, and a layer of ground rails is also paved on the road. In addition, there are several gas stations all over the city. Looking at the changes in front of him, Yao Chen asked, Jarvis, how's the canola construction going? It's basically done, sir. He narrowed his eyes slightly and tapped his fingers lightly on the table. Rapeseed was a pilot before he chose to build the City of Dreams. As for why you should choose this city, the reason is simple because it is the seaport city of Alabasta. Every day, people from September 20th from all over the world come here. Choosing to conduct a pilot program here can play a good role in publicity. In addition, there is one more important reason. That is, he is going to provide a group of practitioners to the City of Dreams. After all, it is impossible for him to let a group of people who don't know everything enter the City of Dreams to live. At least, it must be able to carry out some low-end industrial chain work to create certain value. Otherwise, how could he raise a bunch of trash who can't know anything? Of course, high-end industries cannot be handed over to outsiders. This kind of thing Yao Chen will only hold the master firmly in his own hands. In the city, outside many discrete large base stations, many civilians are watching. Janet, what do you think the Xinjiao army built these things for? How do I know? Anyway, there are quite a few such facilities around the city recently. I heard that it seems to be related to some big plan of Xinye Jun. Even His Majesty the King ordered us to cooperate with the Xinjiao army. A man with orange-yellow hair was a little worried. There will be no danger, will it? Don't worry, His Majesty the King has asked us to cooperate. Then there must be no danger. At this time, a member of Xinjiao army stepped forward, still holding a form in his hand. I saw him saying to the crowd, hello, everyone from the Rapeseed Flowers. I'm a staff member of the Shining Star Army. I believe you have also discovered changes in the city during this time. But please don't panic, we are building for this city. Now, I have a new set of job occupations here. I don't know if you are interested in participating. As soon as I heard that the other party wanted to hire them to work, many people have become uneasy. After all, For Xinjiao army, most of their memories are fear. Seeing this, the staff member smiled. Please don't worry, everyone who signs up doesn't care if you pass or fail. Both get 10,000 Baileys. Hearing that there is money to be taken, the people at the scene suddenly became commotion. You must know that 10,000 Bailey is already a month's salary for many people. I saw someone in the crowd immediately asked, "Is there any danger in working for you?" The staff member said, "Rest assured, the work we provide is not in any danger. But everyone needs to focus on training. Only those who have passed the training can officially take up the post." Hearing him say this, everyone felt relieved, and then started to register one after another. Not only here, but the entire R Flower has Star Yao Army personnel recruiting. Soon, the recruited civilians will board an arranged van and head to a training center outside the city. I saw that many people in the car were feeling uneasy. At the same time, I was very curious and surprised. In one of the vans, two young people are having a conversation. "Bonnie, where do you think we are going?" Bonnie shook his head. "How do I know?" "Then you say, what is this thing we are sitting on now?" Bonnie was speechless. I said I don't know anymore. Having said this, he looked at each other again. "It's you, Jet, isn't your dream to go to sea? Why do you want to join me in the work of the Star Army?" Jeter said, "Of course I'm going to sea. However, that will be after you earn enough money to build your own boat." Upon hearing this, Bonnie said incredulously, "You still want to own a ship of your own?" Looking at the other party's expression, Jeter said unconvinced, "Why, don't believe it." Bonnie pouted and didn't say much, when he saw the truck driving all the way for half an hour and finally stopped. At this time, a staff member began to greet everyone to get off. Bonnie and Jet went down immediately. Then I found myself and the others had come to a huge square. And around the square, there are many large buildings. The staff member said, "I also ask everyone to follow me. I'll arrange a place for you next." Hearing his words, Bonnie and others followed him into the building of the training center. Then quickly assigned to a room for 8 people living together. At this point there are already 6 other people here. Just see the staff. You will live here for the next period of time. Then another form was taken out. "This is the work we have arranged for you. When you fill it out, I will come and collect it." Bonnie took over to check, and the people around also gathered around. Just see what it says about taxi drivers, couriers, firefighters, truck drivers, waiters, workers, cooks and other occupations. And next to each class is marked their difficulty level. And the salary you might get after taking the job. The 8 watched carefully and found that some of the occupations they understood. But more is confused. Just when the work of the training center was in full swing, Yao Chen in the base turned his gaze back at 5.3, and then looked at another picture. I saw that this was an open area in Alabasta near the Sandora River. At this time, a large number of engineering robots are under construction. These bots are unlocked from Jarvis Library. It is an engineering robot developed by Tony Stark relying on the technology of the steel suit. Their role is to be used exclusively for construction. Originally, he wanted to put this engineering robot into the market to replace human labor. But thinking about doing this, I am afraid that many people will be laid off, so this technology is sealed up. Now it's cheap Yao Chen, making him just use it to build the City of Dreams. Looking at the rapidly building foundations, he nodded. "Very well, everything is on track. Next, just wait." Chapter 98. See Circle Calendar, 1518. A year has passed since Yao Chen came to this world. In this year, the whole pirate world is in a turbulent situation. Compared with the era of the great pirates started by Roger, I don't know how many times more messed up. In the end, the reason is because the Revolutionary Army has set off wars all over the world. The world government has also entered a state of war. Many countries also joined together to resist the offensive of the Revolutionary Army. It is a pity, however, that the Revolutionary Army was armed with strong ships and guns. No country can really resist. Many people who were unwilling to be oppressed also joined in. Make them stronger. In addition, some ambitious people also want to take a share in such troubled times. Some people took advantage of the world government and couldn't take advantage of it. Attacked some of the allied nations to rob their nation's wealth. It can be said that the whole pirate world has become a mess over the past year. Marine was also dispatched several times to fight the Revolutionary Army. But the dragon brought the essence of guerrilla warfare into full play. Let the other party be exhausted without any gain. The world government has repeatedly protested Yao Chen's behavior of selling weapons. But Yao Chen didn't care at all, and still kept selling on both sides. Although most of the major events in the pirate world today are related to the Revolutionary Army. But many big people know that the real cause of all this is Yao Chen. Wanakuni, in the huge palace. Kaido was drinking with a bowl of wine at the moment. This year, the Revolutionary Army has done a good job. I'm looking forward to it. The 3 disaster flew on the side. Lord Kaido, Marine seems to be dispatched again. Kaido put down the wine bowl, send our fleet and hold them back. I don't want Marine to disrupt the current situation. After all, there is nothing more worth looking forward to than a war sweeping the world. She received the order and directly began to contact the fleet. And Kaido poured himself a glass of wine again. Speaking of which, it's all caused by that guy named Commander. I really want to know what kind of person he is. And his Zenjao army, I heard that it is also very powerful. If it can be recovered, that's fine. Just as he was talking about Yao Chen was also looking at the invitation letter in front of him and was speechless. I saw a dessert mark printed on the invitation. It could be seen at a glance that it was an invitation from one of the 4 emperors, Charlotte Linlin. Yao Chen tapped lightly on the table with his fingers. Interesting. Is it a month from now? It's time to decide whether to go or not. Now, there are more important things. Seeing him looking at the screen in front of him, his face was full of excitement. In the picture, a big city full of modern atmosphere is unfolding in front of him. It took me a full year to finally build it. Yao Chen's tone was full of sighs. It has to be said that the efficiency of robots is terrible. Such a city, under normal circumstances, cannot be built within 20 years. But it only took a year for the robot to be fully constructed. Yao Chen stared at the city in the picture and said softly, "Next, it's open to settle in." Just when he was thinking about how to arrange it. In the port city of our flower, an unexpected person came. The man was wearing a purple overcoat and held a cane in his hand. His eyes were closed and he looked like a blind man. It was Fujitora, who was exceptionally promoted to admiral after the Marine World conscription in the original book, smiled. I saw him walking down the street feeling the crowd around him. Through observation haki, he discovered that the people here are different from other places. All had happy smiles on their faces. It was a picture he had never seen before. Yuxiao has been to too many places and countries. Everywhere, he could only feel the numbness and pain in the hearts of the people. Even if there are happy people, it is in a state of ensuring that they will not worry about eating or drinking. But the people of this city did not have the slightest pain and confusion. He could feel that the happiness of the people here comes from the heart. This made him very curious and wanted to find out why. In fact, it's not surprising to smile, it's because he's blind. So I can't see the R flower in front of me, what kind of city it is. Although it is only a short year of development, its name has already resounded in the sea. Countless people come here to see the charm of this city. I do not know since when, it has a new name, the city that never sleeps. If you are a first-time visitor here, at first sight, you will be shocked by the wharf of rapeseed flowers. I saw a huge 10,000-ton oil tanker parked here. Next to it is the marine warship protecting it. On the shore, many cranes and trucks are transporting the goods unloaded from above. After passing through the wharf and entering the city, what you see is an extremely prosperous commercial street. There are also various billboards hanging on various buildings in the commercial street. What Fragrance Barbershop, Seafood Hotel, Night Bar, Ocean 920 Clothing Store and so on. Many of them are lit with neon lights of various colors. For those who meet for the first time, it will be full of deep attraction. Besides, the people here are also very fashionable. Beside the crowd, there is a busy road. On both sides of the highway, there are countless street lights and some overpasses erected. Under the overpass, all the cars of the 1940s and 1950s were driving. And from time to time there will be a simple tram passing by. It can be said that the whole R flower looks like a magical capital in the 1940s and 1950s. Among the crowds in the commercial street, Bonnie was slowly patrolling. As the first batch of people who went to training with Jet, he eventually chose to become a police officer. And this is a whole year. He is satisfied with who he is now. As an official who can exercise a little power. Bonnie was ready to go on like this. To know the police training today, but he did not know how many times stricter. Just then, a voice came from behind. "Excuse me, can you help me introduce this city?" Bonnie turned to find that it was Fujitora who stopped him with a smile. Chapter 99. Watching Fujitora smile, Bonnie asked, "Outsiders?" With a smile, he nodded and said, "Yes, this is the first time this old man has come to Alabasta." "Then how did you know to ask me?" Yi smiled and said, "I heard others say, if there is anything, just look for. Policeman." Cough. Yes, the police. Maintaining order and helping others is the essential job of the police, so Bonnie directly agrees. "Okay, then I'll show you around the city. It's troublesome." I saw the two slowly walking down the street. Fujitora asked at this time, "This old man has been to many places in his life. But it has never been like this city, giving people a kind of, full of energy." Bonnie described. "Yes. Vibrant, that's the word. The people here are very energetic. The happiness on their faces is not retained and on the surface, but comes from the heart." The old man is really curious as to what caused all this. Bonnie said, "Actually, don't look at how good rapeseed is now. A year ago, it was no different from anywhere else in the world." "What? So what changed that?" Bonnie's eyes were a little complicated, and then he said slowly, "It's the Zenjao army who changed this place. Hearing the words Xin Yejun, he smiled and frowned. However, I heard that the reputation of the Shining Star Army is not good in Alabasta. Bonnie shook his head. That's the past. The Xinjiao army today has been loved by everyone. Because they rebuilt the city. In exchange for the life we have now. He smiled and thought for a while. Let's move on. The two walked down the street again. At this time, a parking lane appeared ahead. I saw many people gathered here, waving their money at the cars on the street. Fujitora asked curiously, what are these people doing? He couldn't see, so in perception, he only knew that a group of people kept waving their hands there. Bonnie said, they're taking a taxi. Take a car? Yeah, it's the four-wheeled thing that's running on the road. It's called a car. He smiled and shook his head. Sorry, the old man is blind, so he can't see. It can only be perceived that there are a lot of fast things, shuttling back and forth. Wrong? Are you blind? Bonnie was a little surprised. Yi smiled and nodded. Sorry, the old man's eyes were blinded a long time ago. Bonnie hurriedly explained, I didn't mean to look down on you. Just seeing that you are no different from an ordinary person, I thought you were a normal person. Yi smiled and said, this is a little skill that this old man is not at all in the mainstream. Although the eyes are blind, the heart sees very clearly. Amazing. Bonnie exclaimed. I saw a smile and asked, by the way, since these people are here to take a taxi, then why didn't those cars stop as you said? Bonnie looked astonished. It's normal. Because there is no shortage of business for taxi drivers. So it's totally up to your mood whether you accept or not. That's why a lot of people can't get a car with money. This is true. Fujitora didn't know what to say. People in other places can't even afford to eat. People here can't even get a car if they have money. Bonnie said, let's go, I'll show you around. The two hit the road again, this time passing a common area. I saw that there were many people gathered here. He asked with a smile, why are there so many people here? It's a recreational area, Bonnie said. These people are all out to relax and exercise, by the way. Exercise? Yes, look over there, there are many public fitness facilities. As soon as he finished speaking, Bonnie remembered that the other party was blind and hurriedly said, sorry, I forgot that you can't see. Yi Xiao didn't mind, it's okay, I can clearly perceive that there are indeed many people exercising in the place you mentioned. Also, there seem to be all kinds of specialized equipment there. Bonnie was a little surprised, can you feel this too? Fujitora smiled and didn't say much. Seeing this, Bonnie didn't ask any further questions, but said, actually, for the people in this city, it's a normal thing to take a walk every day and get some exercise. Fujitora smiled and sighed, it's a life that makes people yearn and envious. Everyone who comes to Rapeseed for the first time will say something like this. After visiting the leisure area, the two hit the road again. This time, they came to a bustling snack street. After walking into it, a tangy aroma hits you. Many people are chatting and eating here. It's a food street, Bonnie said. It's a place that specializes in selling all kinds of food. Nodding with a smile, don't feel it, the old man has already come out. Although I don't know what kind of food there are, but when I smell it, it fills my appetite. Bonnie smiled. Ha, of course. The chefs here are all those who have passed the examination and obtained the chef's certificate. So the level of production will not be bad. With a smile, he asked curiously, what certificate do you need to take to be a chef? Bonnie nodded, of course. Every shop in the gourmet street is strictly certified. We can't let someone who doesn't know how to cook open a shop. That kind of behavior is irresponsible to the people. If you want to open a shop, go get a good training. The training is passed, then we will not stop you. With a smile, holding a cane and knocking on the ground, a sigh came out of his mouth. Amazing. Bonnie smiled and led him to a bun shop. Boss, here are 2 cages of buns. Okay. Soon, a middle-aged man walked out with 2 long bows, promised, and placed them in front of the two of them. Try it and see how it tastes. He smiled and nodded, thank you. Then pick one up with chopsticks and put it in your mouth to chew. Immediately, a strong smell of fresh meat spread inside. I have to admit, as the other party said, the food here is really not bad. At this time, Bonnie asked, boss, have you made a lot of money this month? The boss smiled immediately, no more, no less, exactly 300,000 Baileys. Hearing this number, the smile who was tasting the steamed buns was taken aback for a moment. You must know that in other places, 10,000 Baileys are enough for a family of 3 to live. But here, a small steamed bun shop can earn 300,000 yuan a month. Seeing that he was silent for a long time, he let out a full sigh. Everything here is so unheard of, unheard of. For the first time, Fujitora regretted stabbing his eyes out. Purchase. Chapter 100. However, at this moment, a beggar suddenly came to the two of them. You two, please do it, and give me a little meal. Seeing the beggar, Bonnie's eyes flashed with disgust. Go away, there's no money here. Seeing this with a smile, He frowned, and then took out a little money from his body and handed it to the other party. The beggar stretched out his hand to take it, and hurriedly thanked, "Thank you, my lord." Then left happily. "Just see Bonnie Road, uncle, you shouldn't give him money." He smiled but said, "He's just a poor man. I can help if I can, and I'm just doing my best. It's your attitude towards him that makes me unhappy." Bonnie disdainfully said, "Ha! Uncle, look at that guy, except for the tattered and dirty clothes. There's no such thing as a beggar's skinny look, unable to afford food." Hearing him say that, he smiled and came back to his senses. His observation Hacky did feel that the other person's body was very healthy, and there was no malnutrition. Looking at the look with a puzzled smile on his face, Bonnie said, "Do you know why I treat him like that?" Yi smiled and frowned. "Is there any reason for this?" Bonnie said, "You know, there are a lot of factories, 920 in this city. As long as you have hands and feet, you can go to work in the factory. In addition to a little bit more tiring, but I can get a satisfactory salary every month. No matter how bad it is, no one will starve to death." To put it bluntly, the beggar just now was just lazy and didn't want to work. Hearing what he said, he was completely stunned with a smile, and after a while, he opened his mouth. "It turns out that, I'm still wondering why there are beggars in this city. It's actually like this." Bonnie said as if he had come over, "Uncle, beggars can be found in any city. After all, there are always many lazy people in this world. For this kind of person, even if you arrange a good job for them, they will not do it." Hearing what he said, Fujitora opened her mouth and was speechless. Where he used to go, beggars really couldn't afford to eat. It's like here, it's because of laziness. Bonnie continued, "And, do you think the city's beggars really have a bad time? As long as they are thick-skinned and begging for a month, they can earn more than, DBFD, many normal people. Some beggars still make their fortunes from this. After all, I don't know how many rich people come to this city from all over the world every day. As long as one person gives a little, it is a huge wealth." After listening to his words, Fujitora was a little stunned, and even his three views were challenged. Bonnie said, "We have a famous quote here. I would rather be a beggar in the city that never sleeps than be a noble in another country. It can be seen that those guys have acres." After hearing this, Fujitora sighed inwardly. Is it a city that can be rich even by begging? It's incredible. Soon, the two finished eating the buns and set off on the road again. After this period of contact, Bonnie found that the other party seemed to care about the lives of ordinary people. So he said, "Well, uncle, I'm almost off work." "Exactly, I'll take you to my house to have a look. Meet the living conditions of those of us." Hearing what he said, Fujitora nodded, "All right." Then followed Bonnie to his house. Bonnie's house is a small building. The standard of living does not seem to be bad. When he entered the house, he saw a little girl running over. "Brother, you are back. Did you buy me something delicious?" "There are some." Bonnie took a bag of candy from his body and handed it to the other party. I saw the little girl ran away happily. At this time, his mother also came forward. "You're back." Then he looked at Fujitora beside him and wondered. "Bonnie, who is this?" "Oh, this is an uncle named Yi Xiao I know. I want to take him to see the living conditions at home." Nodding with a smile, "It's troublesome." The woman shook her head, "It's okay, please come in." When Fujitora entered, he felt it carefully with the color of his knowledge. There are many items in the room that have not been seen before. He pointed to one of them and said, "What is that?" Looking at what Fujitora was referring to, Bonnie said, "It's an air conditioner, an electrical appliance specially designed to cool off the heat." As he turned on the air conditioner, he saw a cool breeze blowing out. A look of surprise appeared on Fujitora's face. "With this thing, summer won't be hot anymore." Having said that, he pointed to another appliance. "What's that?" "It's TV, you can watch all kinds of programs. Speaking of which, my family bought a TV nearby. Every day when it is broadcast, all the people around will come to my house to watch." Next, Bonnie introduced the refrigerator, washing machine, and so on to a smile. And a smile also knows that these appliances are all driven by electricity. Listening to these things that have never been seen before, but can change the lives of ordinary people. A smile really wants to see with his own eyes what they look like. When he walked out of Bonnie's house again, the sun had gone down. At this time, countless lights also lit up in the city, embellishing it very beautifully. If anyone sees this scene, they will understand why the R-Flower is called the city that never sleeps. Unfortunately, the smile is invisible. I saw him walking in one direction, and finally came to an alley. "Notify your boss that I want to meet him." In the alley, a figure walked out, reporting with a communicator in his hand. Then, he put down the communicator and said, "Please come with me." A smile followed this person, and soon came to a car and sat in. The car started and drove towards somewhere in the city. And on the road, a smile also found, relative to the day. It seems that at night, the city comes alive. All I could hear was the sound of songs being played around. People also cheered and took to the streets, looking for their own nightlife. And he finally understood why this city was called the city that never sleeps. As the car moved forward, he soon came to a building in the city with a smile. When he entered it and came to the top floor, saw Crocodile here. Hello everyone, I know you like my video very much, so once again I buy Tony Stark nano suit. It's very costly but don't worry, I got bank loan, haha.
When's the last time you had a vegetable?
Tuesday month.
Damn it, Janet! Meet Groons, a daily pack of 8 delicious gummies filled with all the essential vitamins, minerals, and superfoods you need to thrive.
But don't I need like over 60 essential nutrients? Vitamin C, D, zinc,
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P,
Groons has
Q, R, S, T, U,
and for
V.
whole food ingredients you can actually read, not some crazy chemical compound.
Organic spinach. I can read it!
Heck yeah, you can, buff boy! Bring it in, you two. Groons is packed with the 8 MBCs you need to feel better every day. Whole fruits, whole veggies, vitamins and minerals, herbs, antioxidants, prebiotics, and it's even got your full dose of mood-boosting adaptogens and super mushrooms. Which could help with that anxiety I'm picking up, bud. Plus, they're an adorable, snackable, bite-sized treat you can take on the go. They're basically fruit snacks with benefits without the fillers. Like your childhood gummies grew up and got a real job.
And these are vegan too, right? I don't like to hurt animals.
Interesting. But yes, Groons are vegan, gluten-free, and ethically sourced.
Where can I get more?
At Groons.co.
Hey man, look, I work out, I get gains, and I know for a fact that if something helps you, it has to taste terrible. Okay.
Holy. Oh god. Groons figured out how to make gummies delicious and nutritious.
No pain and gain?
No pain,
It tastes like sweet berries.
Groons knows you need greens you'll actually like to take every day. Because without proper comprehensive nutrition, you will be severely deficient and die. Just kidding. But 92% of people are deficient in essential vitamins and minerals. Luckily, Groons tasty gummies make sticking to a nutrient regimen easier than ever. Think of them as your ultimate spotter that meets you where you're at. Whether you're keeping cravings at bay on that business trip, staying sane through the madness of life, or crushing those demanding college years, Groons is just the assist you need. That's it, Janet! Take that full body vitality straight to the hole!
Tastes great!
Sugar-free Groons do too.
It comes in sugar-free?
Where does he keep getting these coolers?
The gains are game-changing, folks. Just look at all these happy, healthy Groon superstars. It's time to stop slacking and start biohacking. Click the link now and jumpstart your journey to comprehensive health with Groons.
Generally calm people of Reddit. What made you lose your absolute crap that time? My 7th freaking trip to the DMV when trying to reinstate my license. Every single time they scrutinized my paperwork and always managed to find something wrong and would send me away to fix it. On the 7th trip, they finally resorted to, "You have no proof that you ever had a license." Despite my piles of paperwork showing my driving record, among other things, I refused to leave the seat and said, "You people are freaking monsters." Manager was called. We argued. He said he believed that I had a license, but there was just no proof, and he couldn't risk accepting my paperwork in case someone checked it. I said I refused to leave the seat until I knew exactly what was needed. Manager said, "Tell you what, I can contact last day they lived in, and could get a verification that I had a license there. It would take 3 minutes." That's when I yelled in the DMV, "Why wasn't that the first freaking thing you said?" Anyway, I got my license back. The DMV. Capable of sending even the most calm people into a rage. Story 2. I was always a really quiet kid, even as a toddler, apparently. So one of the first times I remember losing my crap was when I got really tired of this third grader picking on me on the bus. I was in kindergarten, and this kid kept popping his head over my seat and poking me. I timed it out, and the next time he did, I punched him straight in the nose, which he immediately started crying. I didn't know it at the time, but apparently the kid's parents tried to get some disciplinary action against me. That was until they found out I wasn't the same age or older. They just didn't want to make a big stink out of their kid getting slapped by a kindergartner. Story 3. It was Halloween, and I was sitting out the front of my house watching my sister take my niece, who was around 4, trick-or-treating. The people who lived above us, who lived in a maisonette, decided to shoot a firework at them. This is the only time I've lost my crap. Got them inside the house and made sure they were all right. My sister had only a few non-serious burns on her arm and managed to shield my niece from the explosion. At that point, I was just so angry. Went up to their door and started banging on it, demanding to come out. They didn't answer, so I started trying to kick the door in. My mom and brother dragged me away and back inside to calm me down. Half an hour later, the police arrived because the neighbors had called them about me. Luckily, after we explained what had actually happened, I didn't get any trouble. But neither did they. Story 4. I've been dealing with listening to my dad and his ex-girlfriend have screaming matches and occasionally getting dragged into it for like a year. It started again one evening and she addressed me, demanding me to answer something or another to fuel her argument against my dad. I was just trying to play a game at the time and I just kind of snapped and screamed, "I don't know, and I don't care, and I'm tired of your fighting." It wasn't much, but I've never raised my voice ever, and I think it kind of just stunned them both into silence. She walked out of the house. Lol. Story 5. I used to be a waitress and never caused any drama. I was there to make money for my wedding. I showed up on time, didn't take smoke breaks, never on my phone, and rolled with the punches. The 2 best compliments in my life came from a manager. One was him thanking me for not making him know my fiance's name. Never had problems to deal with at work like the other girls, and I didn't chit-chat. And when all hell's breaking loose, he called me his calm little Hindu calf, which still makes me laugh. Anyway, this schmuck's cook wouldn't stop calling me pet names and trying to touch me. Every time I said loudly and clearly, "Don't touch me," and "My name isn't Sweetheart, it's Hopeful Kitty," everyone knew how I felt and tried to tell me, "That's just how he is. Let it go." I told him that the way I am is that I don't want him to touch me. When the manager talked to him, he'd stop for a few weeks, then start again. After months of this, I told the manager that it didn't stop and I was going to file a complaint. The manager talked to the owner and asked if he'd rather have the cook or me because I was on the verge of quitting. They agreed they'd rather have me 100 times over, the schmuck. Dude was gone by the next day and I got an escort to my car every night. Turns out if you're drama-free and calm, people really listen when you have a problem. Story 6. Back when I was working retail, I was manning the return desk when this woman came in to return 2 totes full of clearing clothes. She wants to rebuy them all since clearing stuff is now cheaper. That's against the rules and I explained why. But per usual, she gets a manager and the manager caves. Since she bought this stuff in 3 different receipts and mixed them all up, this transaction is fixing to take 30 minutes at least. I'm frustrated, but hiding it well. 15 minutes in, I hear some commotion off to the side. I turn my head and see that this woman's 5 or so completely unsupervised kids have piled onto a flat cart and are pushing it around. I don't know why it set me off so bad, but I pointed and yelled at them, raising my voice for the first and last time during my 10-year stint. The entire place fell silent, and the customer was so mad at her kids that she took her stuff and left. A couple co-workers said seeing me get angry was really unsettling. A blessing that comes with being the quiet one, I guess. Story 7. My brother and I played travel sports for a few seasons as kids. One trip I was at the pool with some of his teammates messing around in the water and the coach's kid was being a schmuck, as usual. The brother was one of the smaller kids in his team, so the coach's son would mess with him a lot. Most of the kids on my brother's team disliked him, but didn't speak up so they wouldn't be next. He thought it would be funny to pick up my brother's drink right in front of him and mess with it. My dad taught me from a young age not to let anyone mess with my brother or sister, so I got seriously angry. I took a good running start and shoulder-checked him into the pool. Since he had just gone there, he hadn't taken his clothes off yet and cried because his phone and iPod got ruined. He literally ran out yelling, "I'm telling my dad!" Well, that backfired because everyone stuck up for my brother and the coach was not happy to find out what a schmuck his son was being, so he was the only one to get in any trouble. Story 8. In high school, we had a friend who had chosen to be a little more promiscuous than others. We honestly didn't care. Besides enjoying intimacy, her personality was entirely the same. However, it's high school, so one girl in particular took it upon herself to often shame and tell this girl she was a witch. We would all stick up for her, be the bigger person, and walk away. Except one day, this girl decided to shove through our group, knocking said friend over, causing her to hurt herself. She laughed and called her a witch. I completely lost my crap. Grabbed the girl by the hair as she walked away and yanked it, and then screamed at her that she's a hateful person because her mom chose substances over her. Then as I walked away, I pushed the door open so hard that when she tried to follow me, it swung back and hit her in the face. She stopped calling my friend a witch after that. Not my proudest moment, and I've not ever used information that's meant to be private against another person again. Story 9. In healthcare, you get yelled at a lot for stupid stuff. Where's my ginger ale? Screw that doctor. He's a schmuck for taking too long, etc. But one patient crossed the line. She didn't like that I called the previous hospital she was at the night before to get a record so I could see what was done. Completely legal. Done all the time so things aren't missed or repeated unnecessarily, and yes, she signed a release so we could do it. She then came out of her room and threw a full styrofoam cup of her mess at me. Dodged it by a millimeter, but it ruined a computer monitor. She then said, "Witch, I'm gonna leave here and mess up your family." Done. Crap lost. Screamed for security and personally put her back in her room with the help of every tech and nurse in the emergency department. 4-point restrained her for out-of-control behavior that was a danger to the staff, and called the police. Once we got the records from the previous hospital, we found out she pulled the same act to a lesser degree the night before. After she was medically cleared, the police took her to jail, and my final words to her were, "Good luck in the clink." She was charged and given jail time for that and multiple parole violations. Story 10. I worked at a theater. I saw a father pressing his child's head down to get him below the minimum height to not have to pay for a ticket for the child. The child was in pain. Ended up in a screaming match with the dad. Well, I guess the system was designed for children who are small enough to not take up a seat. Say with parents in one seat without having to pay. They then decided that this height, or size in 90 centimeters, around 3 feet, to be the cutoff point after which the parents need to buy a seat for the child. It's not so much that your child is young enough to not have to pay to watch a movie, more like your child is small-sized enough to not have to take up a seat. So one ticket entitles you one seat. You can buy a ticket for a seat for your child under 90 centimeters if you want to use the second seat for your child or your bags. It isn't free seating. You get to choose which seats you want, so... no one else has a claim in the seats you bought. I bet the dad's next move is going to be stuffing the kid into his oversized popcorn bucket. Story 11. As a surgeon, I try to remain calm and steady about most everything. Even all the staff comments about how I'm the most calm surgeon they've ever met. One time, taking out someone's gallbladder, the assistant needs to grab it and hold it up so I can free stuff up. A new person was helping me and moving a little too fast without seeing where their instrument was going before grabbing the gallbladder. When the camera finds the grasper, they end up poking a small hole in the liver. Let out an audible sigh and a small grumble. Ended up not hurting all that much, and the rest of the surgery went fine. One of these days, I want to throw instruments like some other people I know just to see how people react. Story 12. I never liked playing football in general, just because I wasn't an aggressive person. But in 5th grade, I had a teammate who, during practice scrimmages, would always line up across from me. At the snap, he would grab me by the face mask and pull me to the ground. I let it go on for most of the season until I started having neck issues and pains, and still do. During one of our final practices, I was getting water across the field and decided enough was enough. I sprinted full charge across the field, sacked him with all my weight, and while I pinned him down under me, grabbed his face mask and repeatedly slammed his head into the dirt until my coaches pulled me off him. After practice, I was running laps until my mom came to get me, and when the season ended, I decided to switch to basketball. Story 13. I was in charge of a rollover trainer once at a military training site. Think of a Humvee on an axle that spins, like a rollover accident. Part of the safety brief before anyone goes in is to empty their pockets of all items. Take any items on belts off. We have rubber items inside to simulate crap flying. We do this for safety's sake. Part of the training is we stop the trainer on its side or roof so the participants can get exposure to assisting the other passengers and exit the vehicle safely and quickly. It's been a long, boring day. Scott, and like all good army training, I'm hungover and irritated. All officers and they are listening for crap. We stop the exercise on the roof for a group, and they all exit except one who can undo the seatbelt. I open the door and reach in and place my hand on a dual-edged 4-inch boot weapon. I absolutely lost my crap. I saw red. My ears burned, and I distinctly remember seeing one of the other instructors' mouth. Oh, crap. I'd shoot out every freaking officer there, all of whom outranked me, many of whom outranked my commander. Didn't matter. As my position was safety officer, I went on a tirade. I turned around after it is done, and my best friend is freaking recording it on his phone. That schmuck showed that clip the rest of the week and for years after him. I miss that guy every day. Story 14. In 6th grade, a group of some 4 kids took Monopoly at the back of the bus. A true power move. I always minded my own business and tried to sit away from them. For one, they all didn't understand basic hygiene and smelled even though they were older than me. Anyway, turns out the bus driver was their quiet, retired grandpa, who would never tell them to stop pastoring or doing dumb crap. So one time they were having a freaking war, as in they screamed across the seats at each other as they jumped seats for cover. I then proceeded to take my Pearson history book, one of those big, heavy, hardcover textbooks, and smashed him with it. Granted, this was me telling them to stop their nonsense several times. It stopped after that. Anyway, the book cover broke and I had to pay at the end of the year, but I regret nothing. Story 15. I'm a bit more quick to anger these days, but as a child, I was fairly quiet and such. When I was in 6th grade, I think, I was always forced to go to church every Sunday and Wednesday. Perks of growing up in the Bible Belt. I've always been a pretty heavy reader, and like most kids at that time, I was heavily into the Harry Potter series. The people at the church my mother forced me to attend decided that those books were not only of the devil himself, but also surely corrupting me. They took every opportunity to tell me so. Making matters worse, the son of my Sunday school teacher decided he was responsible for correcting my devilish ways. In addition to pastoring me about these books every chance he got, he also began getting physical about it. I pretty much just let it all go because it was just a bunch of idiots. What did I care? That is, until he messes with my face. Twice. I chased him down and proceeded to roughen him. I've only been in a few fights, but I've never been in one where I was this absolutely livid. It never bothered me about my choice in books again. I stopped being forced to go to church, so I guess it all worked out okay. Story 16. A friend and I were walking home from high school. Sophomore year, I think. It was really bothering me and kept lightly tripping me the whole walk home. I kept asking him to stop, but he didn't. For context, I did get picked on in high school, so maybe this moment was just the breaking point for some other incident. When we got near where we would separate, he did the tripping thing one last time and I lost it. I swung my backpack at him. High school, remember? So I had heavy books, lunch bag, etc. Here's the part where he really effed up. He was carrying a balls of wood bridge home that he needed to complete for some class. When I swung the backpack, he dropped the bridge. I ran directly at him, but then saw another, better target. I could have kicked a 60-yard field goal. I grabbed my bag, turned, and walked as he stared at his scattered work, saying in a shocked voice, "You broke my bridge." I replied, "I don't give a crap," or something to that effect. 15 years later, and he's one of my best friends. Story 17. I worked at a diner with an open kitchen. You can see us, and we can see you. I'm the only cook during the lunch rush when I hear a lady shout, "Hey!" I look over, and a lady sitting in a booth points at me and then does a very condescending, "come here" motion with her finger. I thought something was wrong with her food, so I decided I can run out of the kitchen, leaving 4 orders on the grill, and see what I need to fix. She has no food on her table. She holds her blue soda cup out to me and asks, "What is this?" Excuse me? Why is my root beer in a soda cup and not a mug? Like, I don't know, I'm just the cook. Oh great, another freaking idiot in this freaking place who doesn't know anything. She then proceeds to chew me out because I, the cook, do not know why the server gave her root beer in a cup. There were special root beer mugs, but the servers couldn't find them. Someone misplaced them. I apologize and head back into the kitchen while she's loudly talking crap about me to the next booth to find that all of my orders are ruined. And more had been coming in. It's already stressful working in a kitchen, and that was the last straw. I went in back, started screaming, and kicked the crap out of the walk-in cooler. When I went back out, everyone was quiet and avoided eye contact. Even the lady with the issues. Still looked pretty mad, though. I rushed through the orders, and thank God she left without saying anything. Didn't get in trouble, though, since my manager was serving and had to deal with her as well. He understood. Story 18. My car broke down yesterday. I was stuck on the side of the highway on a bridge with no exact reference to where I was. Called roadside assistance. They couldn't help because I didn't know my location, so I ended up calling 911. They say an officer is coming, so in the meantime I call back insurance to try to get the tow truck. At this point I've been in my car for about 40 minutes, just roasting and panicking. And I finally get connected and explain how I'm on the side of the road. I'm okay. The 911 is coming because I don't feel safe in my location. I explain how I just want to give them my location so I can get my car towed, and the lady says, "Your guitar? You have to get your guitar? I flipped. It was a mixture of crying and yelling, but I was shouting, "Are you serious? My car! My guitar?" This went along for a couple minutes. No, I ended up apologizing later and explained how I was just scared, but geez, lady. Yeah, I broke down on the side of the road and I needed to get my guitar towed. For clarification purposes, I knew where I was, but not exactly where I was. I didn't call 911 because I was lost. I called an officer to come help me because cars were getting really close and I knew it'd be at least an hour before any tow truck came. After I called 911 and told them my location, they helped me specify my exact mile marker. Even with that information, insurance was still unable to help me. I told the officer what I told the insurance company, and at that point, the officer asked me if I just wanted him to get a tow truck, and I said yes. Story 19. I lost my crap one time when I was little, somewhere in the 5 to 10 range. That doesn't sound out of the ordinary, but I was a quiet, reserved kid who didn't do much out of line. Anyway, I have an older brother who tormented me all the time. This day had been particularly crappy, but I still just took it and coped. My mom made burritos for dinner.
Gear up with Venom Steel for tough protection on every home project. Hard-working pros and dedicated do-it-yourselfers trust Venom Steel at every step.
I love burritos, but only if it's well put together. Sloppy sandwiches drive me crazy. Anyway, my brother and I are sitting down, waiting for my parents to sit at the dinner table too. My brother sees that I'm excited and is a bit privy to my sandwich pet peeve. So he takes his index finger and smashes it down into my burrito as hard as he can. I get upset. So then he just open palm smashes the burrito on my plate into an absolute mess. I lose my crap and whip the burrito at him, missing and nailing the wall. Parents walked in just when I threw the burrito on the wall. They freeze. Then instead of yelling at me, they immediately ask my brother, "What did you do to him?" Hearing that I would not be punished and that they knew it was my brother's fault without seeing what happened made it a little bit better. I don't think I ever ended up getting a burrito that night though. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 20. This lady came to the shelter to see the cats. She asked if she could give them treats and I said yes. And it's a shelter where most of the cats are free. So gets the bag out, the cats are getting wild with anticipation and she just stood there laughing and tempting them without giving them anything. She looked like she enjoyed their anxiety and her laugh sounded like a crazy person. I lost it. Grabbed the bag out of her hands, gave treats to the cats and asked her to leave. Those cats are already stressed out. Don't give them more anxiety. I'm surprised she didn't try to pay for the treats with Monopoly money. Story 21. Just this week when two pit bulls forced their way under my fence and mauled my dog. I always worried that if crap went down and had to act in an emergency, I would freeze up. Didn't happen. I called 911, screaming at the dispatcher that they were terminating my dog, begging the police to get there. I was pounding in the windows, screaming at the dogs at the same time. Just pure terror and helplessness. I was sure she was going to pass away. But instead those dogs are gone and my little Pitty's going to recover. After I calmed down, I told one of the officers to apologize to the dispatch lady for me. Story 22. In the 8th grade, I decided to join the school wrestling team. I was overweight and not very good at wrestling, but I still tried. Every day after practice, while waiting for parents to pick us up, I would get picked on by any of a number of the other team members. One day, one of the guys decided to take it to the next level and punched me. I stood there stunned with my ears ringing, and then rage took over. I was wearing a hoodie sweatshirt, and with my left hand, I reached over and grabbed the hood and held tight while delivering uppercuts, while he tried to escape, running backwards. After what seemed like around 15 straight punches, I finally let go and he continued to run backward. He stopped running backward after a few seconds, then came running back towards me. I'm thinking, oh great, here we go again. He got about halfway back to me and let out a wail that sounded like a combined scream and wolf howl, and then dropped to the ground crying. I turned around to a crowd of wide-eyed and stunned bystanders. I walked to the door while they tended to him. The next day, he came to school with 2 black eyes swollen shut and bruises all over his face. The wrestling coach basically told the team to stop messing with me, and that was literally the last time I ever got into a fight. It was nearly 40 years ago. Story 23. My son was maybe 8 months old and had recently been diagnosed as profoundly deaf. Deaf kids will often inhale to make vibrations and noise that they can somewhat hear for stimulation. We were on pins and needles as I just lost my job, and our insurance and the cochlear implant surgery was going to cost us $170,000. We'd have to sell the house and one of the cars. We needed a break, and our in-laws took us to the food court at a local mall. Our boy started to inhale and gasp. Needs a roughening. A fat 20-something said not so quietly to her friends at the table next to us. I rarely scream in public, and I'm generally non-confrontational, but a stream of words issued from my mouth for a good 10 minutes that would have put a sailor to shame. I found it couldn't stop, and it got on the verge of Bukowskian poetry. I insulted her, her mother, her weight, and her pinched-faced friends. I launched into the smell of her, how fat she was. I should only be able to reproduce with a blind idiot as she was uglier than the devil on fire, and it only progressed from there. F. Lee Ermey's Marine drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket would have told me to tone it down a bit. I told her he was deaf and that we couldn't stop it, and this was a goddamn food court in a southern town filled with redneck ignorant mutant troglodytes that embarrassed normal troglodytes. The food court was silent and all the eyes were upon us. And it progressed from there. She got up and left crying. I can honestly say the whole rant was involuntary. I've never done anything like this before and have not done it since. I feel bad for her to this day. Story 24. Was a camp executive at my high school and was responsible for the entire guy's side during our week-long camping trip. As a quick backstory, there were 7 execs, 3 boys and 4 girls, in charge of about 140 students. The teachers had divided the girls and guys' sides into different colors to make various groups for the activities we'd be doing all week. Out of the 140 students we had to watch over, there were about 40 leaders. Those that were to monitor their respective teams, and the rest were campers. For the most part, the majority of the guys were pretty chill. A little loud, but we're following the rules. I don't mind a little noise as long as everyone's in their rooms when lights out happens, the time whereby no one should leave their cabins at night, unless to use the restroom. However, there was this one cabin, the freaking purple team. Lord help me here. Kept getting noise complaints from the other leaders regarding the purple team's cabin to the point where the teachers were getting frustrated with us execs. If the campers make too much noise, it was the job of the leaders to handle it. If they can't, then the execs have to step in. If execs can't handle it, then the teachers have to step in, and no one really wants that. So I've gotten multiple complaints from almost every team about the purple team that I go in to check it out. As soon as I stepped inside, not only was it loud, but there was a distinct smell. A very earthy smell. I flipped the heck out. Not because I have any problems with grass, but because if the teachers were to come down, this trip would be over before it even started. I don't think I've ever gotten that angry in my life before. And I don't think I got another noise complaint the rest of the week. Story 25. The way I had been detained during the 12th of June protests in Moscow last year. The actual protest was on Tverskaya Street. It is normally a huge street with heavy car traffic, but on that day it was blocked and full of people. The thing went super smoothly. We had a good time with friends. It was pretty calm. The thing ended and we decided to go home. We went from Tverskaya Street into the neighboring small side street, went to a bar, had a beer. It was all nice. We were happy. No one has been in contact with police. And we walked around a little and decided to go home. At that point, the protest was over, but the Omen forces were still there. So I noticed on our way a lonely police officer. Come to him and ask if we can get this way to the closest subway station. I can see it about 600 meters in front of me. Or it is closed. It might have been. Who knows? He's polite and says it is okay and we can go there. I thank him, turn right, and start walking towards the subway station. Next thing I see is 4 Omen guards marching towards me in the street in a line.
Do not start your business in 2025 without knowing these 3 lessons. Trust me, I learned the hard way, and back then I didn't have tools like AI or LegalZoom to guide me. One of the first products that I ever sold was reading glasses. Back then I was selling on the big marketplaces of the internet, and I had shiny object syndrome. I wanted to try and sell anything and everything I could find. One week it's reading glasses, next week clothing, the next week coffee mugs, you get it. Instead I should have stuck to a niche, probably reading glasses, and built a brand. Lesson 2, I think doubling down on what's working is important, and I messed that up too. I remember we had these folding glasses that fit in this little case, and we sold thousands. We should have manufactured other designs and colors with a similar design. Now, of course, other brands have done that. Lesson 3 would be waiting too long to start an LLC. If you guys don't know, an LLC helps protect your personal assets. It makes things easier when you're working with factories and suppliers, and it can help you save on taxes. Now I can just use LegalZoom and get the same thing done cheaper and faster. LegalZoom offers personalized service and can even help you with compliance so that your business is properly set up for years. Peace.
From real-world training to real-world success, Southeast Technical College offers over 65 pathways to a new career. We're committed to your success, providing the tools and education for a brighter future. Get your degree, get to work at Southeast Technical College.
For some reason, I'm in front of my group by about 4 meters, I guess. I guess I was rushing to finally go home. That was a mistake. So I obviously don't want to get in the way of the guards and go to the sidewalk, but they probably interpreted it as me trying to escape from them. Even though they were just going somewhere. They weren't walking towards specifically me. So the next thing that happens is that two of them in a matter of seconds rush towards me, kick me on the ground, and lift me up and bring me to the side of the police bus where they rudely search me and call me names, and then throw into the thing. All of that with my girlfriend screaming at the top of her lungs behind me in fear. I can't see her, but just hear her voice. Just the way they did it and the whole situation makes me angry to this day. It wasn't even in the place of the protest, so it might have just been a random dude whom they found, like, that could be a part of the protest because of my age. I had no attributes, like flags or posters. I was dressed in a very neutral way and just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you're interested, what happened next is that I sat in that bus for an hour, then we went to a police station on the other side of the city. Sat in the bus some more. There were about 10 detained people in my bus, on the territory of the police station, and some good cop, bad cop for about 2 hours, and they released me. 3 months later, I got a fine of about $400 for taking part in an unlawful protest via email. Story 26. So, earlier this year, my health insurance got messed up. I started making too much money to qualify for my state's Medicare, so healthcare.gov requested a notification from NJ Family Care to confirm I wasn't on it anymore. So in January, I called them to get said notification. They say, yeah, you should get it in a couple weeks. It never comes. Unfortunately, I'd forgotten about it until healthcare.gov sends me a message that they're going to raise my insurance costs if I don't get them the message in the next 2 weeks. So I called NJ Family Care again and explained to them the situation. They once again claim they're going to send me the notice and don't. So now, after getting an extension from healthcare.gov about this, I call up NJ Family Care once more and attempt to explain the situation, politely requesting the cancellation notice, but the woman on the phone gets into an attitude with me, saying some stupid crap like, you know this is the cancellation department, right? And I lost my crap. What the freak is your problem? I don't understand why the heck you can't just send me this freaking letter. What's happening over there? Just look in the freaking file and cancel it. Yes, you witch. I know this is the cancellation department. I want to notice that it's canceled. I must have scared the crap out of her because the next thing she said was, I'll go get my supervisor. We'll solve the problem in 10 minutes. And I got my cancellation notice 3 days later. Story 27. I had a job filling vending machines in my mid-30s and was servicing one of my larger accounts that we called full service. Basically, they had soda, snacks, and cold food machines. Most of the customers, while on their break, would come over to me and request certain items. That was not a problem, but there was this one guy that would take it too far. A 21-year-old know-it-all who would stand next to me during his breaks, and he would constantly tell me how to do my job better and tell me about complaints other employees had. They were not telling me in person. Those complaints almost seemed made up, just so he can have something to say. So one day, while I had the food machine door open and I was checking the expiration dates of the milk, he kept interrupting me and telling me not to miss the dates in the milk, and to make sure this isn't an even amount of chocolate and whole milk. I lost it. I stood up, I got right in his face. I didn't yell, but I said loudly enough for others to hear, "Why do you always come over here and nag me while I'm trying to do my job? How would you like it if I went and started jumping up and down in the bed while your mom was trying to do her job?" He got extremely red and looked like he wanted to hit me, and he walked away. I immediately shut and locked all of my machines and left. I called my really good friend who was a supervisor at the time and told him to be expecting a phone call because I'm probably going to get fired. Never got the call, and the kid finally left me alone. Story 28. Maybe not exactly answering this, but there was that time my stupid English teacher started throwing around a smaller notebook that I was using for notes to make a warning to others without bothering to listen to me. It was my personal rough book that I was writing extra notes in and not something that's meant for inspections and such. That was a big shock, considering in these parts you're brought up to treat everything concerning knowledge and learning with utmost respect. And to make an actual scene there, considering he's a massive fat idiot who enjoys making guys cry, but I did keep it in mind I lost my crap at an open house where he was busy boasting to all the parents about how scared we are of him. Also our class teacher, at which point I looked at him directly in the eyes and said that definitely wasn't the case with him. That was definitely the most polite way I could let loose at him. Very satisfying too. The idiot left in a year for lucrative salaries, but not before me and my parents let a bunch of other senior teachers know about his true character. Story 29. This happened in some club ages ago. I was bouncing around on the dance floor with everybody else and apparently stepped on some dude's foot who had been standing there with his posse of 2 or 3 other guys watching people. He shrugged and apologized and turned around to leave. Right then, somebody smacked me in the back of the head. Not hard, but too hard to ignore. I turned around, still calm, and said something like, "Look, I'm gonna walk this way. You guys stay here and nothing more needs to happen." Turned around again. Got smacked in the head again. I was very much angry at that point. Didn't help that they looked at me all innocent. I couldn't even tell which one of them did it. So I just stuck my finger in the face of the dude whose foot I allegedly stepped on and recommended he don't do it again. Turned around once more, waiting to get smacked in the head again. This time they poured a glass of beer in my back. That's when I completely lost my crap. Threw myself around and went straight at the guy. I was in full rage mode and didn't care what happened next as long as that guy suffered. I could tell by the terrified look in his face he realized he had gone too far. His friends had never stepped in to help him. After a while, people separated us, and that was that. I have no sympathy at all for people who resort to violence for solving their problems, but feel no shame for having snapped in that situation. I think I did everything in my power to avoid what eventually happened. Story 30. During a group project during last year of what would be high school, I'd been feeling pretty depressed for a while, and during that time, all my emotions were locked away and kept boiling as if they were in some sort of pot. 2 girls in a group decided the day before the actual presentation that it would be a great idea to make some sort of performance, and I said that there simply wasn't enough time to practice. The 2 girls got slightly angry or irritated that I was willing to give up the idea so easily, but they decided to call the teacher for something like a group meeting. During the meeting, I told them about my thoughts and my reasoning, and these 2 chicks decided to blame every problem on me.
It's a new year for a new ride with new savings at Binion Chevrolet. Shop new offers on a fresh lineup of new Chevy trucks and SUVs. Right now, buy a new 2025 Chevy Silverado LT Crew Cab 4x4. Take $5,000 off MSRP or $7,500 off MSRP if you qualify for Select Market Loyalty Cash. $8,500 off MSRP if you also qualify for Loyalty Purchase Cash. Or $10,000 off MSRP if you qualify for Trade Assistance. Shop Binion Chevrolet in Sioux Falls or BillionAuto.com/Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Introducing the next level in tuning. Pod ActiveSense 2. Well, let's get this thing going. It cleans in an S pattern. You got some serious power hidden in there after all. Impressive. Keep going. Battery life, up to 4 hours of runtime. It really came back. Great job. Get ready for the next round.
Even though I had finished everything I was in charge of, the last line they said was, "Don't sit there and feel sorry for yourself." And the pot boiled over, releasing every single emotion that had been stirring and came out as anger. I smashed my hand down on the table and most likely spouted some words that they most certainly didn't deserve. Not their fault. I was feeling like crap. As I walked out, I punched one of the tables fairly hard so that the bubblegum that had been stuck underneath fell down on the floor, and then I walked out. The 2 girls started crying. The best friend laughed it off, and the other 2 girls were just shocked. Some time passed, and I apologized, but I'm actually quite happy that the whole thing happened, simply because they made me feel emotions again, something which I hadn't felt in a very long time. Story 31. I can remember that day like it was yesterday. I was home, packing my stuff to get ready for when my husband was out of basic training. I never yell or even raise my voice to hardly anyone, ever. My dad has always had a wicked temper, and my sister also had a knack for starting yelling matches with him. One night, she forgot to do something she was supposed to, and the yelling started again. I ignored it up until he called her stupid. He got under my skin, so I spoke up a little, saying that he shouldn't call her that. He hollered back, "You are my daughters. I can talk to you however I want." That's when I snapped. I saw red for the first time in my life, and I completely lost it. I screamed back at him how I was tired of him treating us like garbage when he lost his temper, and how we hid in the back room with my mom until he cooled off, and how all I wanted was to visit my family before I had to move over 12 hours away from them. I also threatened that if he ever wanted to see me again, that he needed to shut up and sit in the corner until he was done throwing a fit. I yelled at him for the first time in my life for a solid 30 minutes. I didn't stop until everything I had to say built over the years was out, and I saw him go from red-faced angry to what seemed to be guilt-ridden. When I finally stopped, he was quiet. He didn't say a word and walked away. Shortly after I moved out, he went to a doctor and has been put on some medication to help with his anger issues. Now he's super friendly. I haven't heard him throw a tantrum like he used to in over 10 years now. He's never spoken poorly to me or my sister since then either. Story 32. Driving to work several years ago. About a 40-minute drive. Wintertime in MN. There was a small chip in my windshield. Started off to work at 5 a.m. First, my gas pedal freezes down, so I'm going 100 miles per hour trying to reach down and unstick my pedal. Got it unstuck. Avoid heart attack. I'm upon stop and go traffic, not 5 minutes later. As I'm sitting in traffic, I watch the aforementioned chip in my windshield start to spider. Slowly, a large crack moves across the glass. I could feel the rage building. Seething anger. Nothing could stop. I completely lose my mind with rage in the car. I calm down enough to take my exit. It's about 3 miles from the exit to work. Got pulled over in the parking lot at work for a broken windshield. I lost my crap after the officer left for about 20 minutes in the parking lot. Went to work. Story 33. There have been multiple times where someone has cut me in line where I've freaked out. I'm the calmest, chillest person I know. I don't have a lot of nagging stress in my life, so it's pretty hard to get me angry. But when someone cuts me in line, I just can't help but get mad. I'm following society's rules. I'm waiting in line. Everyone else is waiting in line. Why can't you wait in line? I don't care what age, race, or gender someone is. I will fully flip my crap when someone cuts me in line. Not at first, though. First, I'll inform them there's a line. If they ignore me or tell me they don't care, I'll calmly explain to them that they have to wait in line just like everyone else. If they continue their behavior, I'll just blatantly cut in front of them. If all has failed with my normal tone of voice, every person who cuts in front of me sees me go insane. Story 34. I was sitting on the ground at a bus stop because there were no seats in the benches. I had headphones in. An older man got off the bus and stood in front of me. I looked up and said, "Hi." Back at my phone. He motioned for me to take my phones out, so I did. He said something I couldn't understand, so I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're saying." I put my phones back in. He bent down, yanked my headphones out, and proceeded to whisper something about prices and hotels and intimacy. I don't actually know what happened next. I do know that I stuck my fist somewhere behind his knee and knocked him over, and started shouting that this man was soliciting me. It wasn't really a decision so much as a thing that my body just did. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.
From the ground to spend if you win redeployment. Your fight's over, soldier. Return to base. Taking fire! We lost that one, but we'll get a W next time.
Flame ring pillar of fire. In the huge circle of fire, a huge flame penetrated, and the violent flame was like a shock wave. It erupted with a bang and tilted towards the large robot like a hot wave. This moment, the whole forest is illuminated by that fire. I didn't expect Xiao Chen actually has such a terrifying ability. Mark's face was shocked. In fact, he already knew what Omnitrix was, and it was just a disguise before. He never thought about it. A child who just got Omnitrix can make Flame Man so outrageous. Is this the Flame Man? It's the Fire God. Although Mohez doesn't know how powerful this move is, the impact of the picture alone is powerful enough. When the body of a large robot is consumed by a terrible fire, its entire alloy body was burned into dregs in an instant, leaving only the hot air and sparks all over the ground. Blaze, end this battle perfectly. Now, let's deal with the forest fire again. The flame man raised his palm lightly and rotated it slightly. Under his control, the flames burning in the forest were surprisingly obedient, and instantly moved closer to him and condensed into his body. Terrible fire control ability. This is the Hall of Mohas. Seeing that the large robot was destroyed to the point of scum, until the screen in the entire hall went black, they also realized that the robot was destroyed. Silence. Deathly silence. This kid, he just got the Omnitrix, how can he be so powerful? Mojus's face was ashen, and the most proud thing he couldn't bear was that his talent for Omnitrix might not be as good as this Earth kid. Lord Mohas, what should I do? Are you still sending robots? Several mechanical hands lowered their heads tremblingly and asked. Go on, send out all the robots of the spaceship at one time, and be sure to capture this human child for me. He must be useful. Pressure. It, for the first time, was a little jealous of others. Here, the flame man has just come out of control of the fire. Bye, bye, bye. With a peculiar sound, the Omnitrix pattern on the flame man's chest continued to flicker, and then, a green light appeared all over his body. After the light dissipated, it was Xiao Chen who appeared in front of everyone again. He covered his chest with his palm, his face full of amazement, as if he was still reminiscing about the strange state just now. The Omnitrix pattern in his hand changed from green to red. Tian Xiaowen and Tian Xiaoban just wanted to say something. If you have anything to say, go back and talk about it, it's not safe here. Mark looked up at the sky, then at the red Omnitrix, and said decisively. Grandpa is right. Xiao Chen's face also became serious, and he subconsciously held Tian Xiaowen's little hand, trying to hold her back to the campsite. Tian Xiaowen's face instantly turned red. Looking at Xiao Chen, who was quite handsome, she was shy and whispered, I'll go by myself. Tian Xiaoban was stunned when he saw it. Xiaowen has never said such gentle words to him. I'm sorry. Xiao Chen hurriedly released Tian Xiaowen's hand, with an apologetic expression on his face. I haven't completely escaped from the state just now.
Spider-Man vs. Bonnie and Clyde. Here we go. Oh, sorry! Please work, please work, please work!
Peter, New York has become a dangerous place.
Oh, gotcha! Oh, that's new.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, now streaming.
Time to fight your way out of here.
Form builder called Formula. It seems they are offering a solution to a massive problem.
So now it begs the question, what do I think about Formula?
So I like that we have a visual way.
And there you go, that is it for the Formaloo software review.
And also you can connect multiple forms together.
I think Formula is deceptively simple.
Fine. Tian Xiaowen's heart warmed and replied softly. Okay, let's go, don't stay here to chat. Mark joked with a smile. Xiao Chen saw this and hurriedly followed Mark to the campsite. After about a few minutes, the four returned to the campsite. The firewood was piled up to form a bonfire. Grandpa Marco went to the station wagon to get something, and the three of Xiao Chen sat around the bonfire. Tian Xiaoban and Tian Xiaowen both looked curiously at the high-tech watch, Omnitrix, on Xiao Chen's wrist. It's this watch. When I flip the screen, as long as I press it, I can turn into an alien. Xiao Chen introduced enthusiastically. This was his childhood dream, and today, the dream has come true real. He really owns the Omnitrix. As he spoke, he turned on Omnitrix and began to rotate the screen little by little, and the alien images on the screen were constantly switching. Could it be that these aliens can be transformed? Tian Xiaowen approached and asked curiously. Well, at present I can transform into 10 different alien heroes. The first alien hero, the one covered in fire, is called Fireman. When Xiao Chen switched to the 10th alien, he switched again, it's the Flame Man. It's so cool. It would be great if you could lend me to play. Tian Xiaoban's face was full of envy. Dude, if it was you, would you be able to deal with so many robots? Tian Xiaowen habitually teased Tian Xiaoban again, but his words did not conceal his admiration for Xiao Chen. It's like a little girl admiring a boy she likes. Xiao Chen, just now, thank you for helping me. Then, Tian Xiaowen was full of thanks again, thanked him generously, and felt a different kind of feeling towards Xiao Chen in his heart. Xiao Chen smiled again, very friendly. Xiao Chen looks much more handsome than those naive boys in our class. Tian Xiaowen thought from the bottom of his heart, with a shy look on his face. Compared with those boys of the same age who are proud of bullying girls, Xiao Chen, who has a calm personality, is a boy she has never met before. At this time, Mark came over with a plate in his hand, with a mysterious expression on his face. You must be hungry after running all the way. Eat something to replenish your strength. This is a good thing. The three of Xiao Chen were indeed hungry, and their eyes fell on the plate in unison. In an instant, both Tian Xiaowen and Tian Xiaoban's faces turned green. On the plate, it is actually thin and long, full of protein. Brow of Xiao Chen, who is much more mature, and his back is also a little cold. Guru swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Master, Grandpa, are you sure you want to eat this tonight? This is a very nutritious delicacy. Marco smiled kindly. Your age is a good time to supplement protein. However, in Xiao Chen's eyes, this kind smile was like a devil's smile. Grandpa, do we have anything like sandwiches, hamburgers, etc.? Xiao Chen asked again in fear. Don't be stupid, how can those things have such high nutritional value? Ma Ke said amiably. By the way, there is still a little beef tongue in the refrigerator. I'll go get it for you. While he was leaving, Tian Xiaoban immediately lowered his voice. What did you bring to eat? I brought some leftover potato chips. I have a bag of chocolate hazelnuts half left. Tian Xiaowen said listlessly, and his hopeful eyes finally fell on Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen clenched his fists and looked at the plate of worms with difficulty. I have a suggestion. Beef tongue will definitely taste better than this worm. You eat beef tongue, I eat this.
I really should have stretched. Great talent speaking. Class is back in session. Nice sense to me. Let's end this.
Along with the Mark's bedroom, which directly refers to the following scene of the comics where they get busy and he uses his powers to pick up Mark's costume. There's even a concept art of the folded costume because we noticed something off about Yu's powers.
You
which is an
have a
indicator
Walt Disney
of
World
another
moment that you can
future
share with us?
story.
Let me see if I can find it.
Actually, my sister took this photo and it was my birthday, so I celebrated it with my childhood heroes.
So is Donald your favorite character?
I know how to mimic his voice. I wanna stay there for eternity.
Spider-Man spends 4 years
Really, Tian Xiaoban looked at the plate of worms and shivered. Here comes the ox tongue. As Xiao Chen said, Mark brought a plate of beef tongue, which was cooked food with seasoning. It looked quite appetizing on the table. Next moment, the eyes of Mark, Tian Xiaowen, and Tian Xiaoban all seemed to fall on Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen took a deep breath, stretched out his right hand, grabbed a part of the protein, and threw it into his mouth with his eyes closed. Click, it's so crunchy, and it doesn't taste bad. What shocked Xiao Chen the most was that after he ate this protein into his stomach, his body actually felt a little bit more comfortable. He opened his eyes and looked at Mark in disbelief. Haha, as I said, this is the best food for you. Mark smiled as expected. Tian Xiaowen and Tian Xiaoban were shocked, especially Tian Xiaoban, who immediately admired Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen is just like Lord Bay at variety shows, worms dare to eat them. You guys should also start eating. After Xiao Chen's psychological bottom line was broken, he no longer rejected protein so much and continued to eat slowly. Tian Xiaowen and Tian Xiaoban also picked up the beef tongue and found that the taste was unexpectedly good. Eating and eating, the topic of the three naturally fell on the magical Omnitrix. This watch seemed to be green before, but now it's red. Tian Xiaowen, who was careful, noticed a difference. Let me try. Xiao Chen pretended to be confused, and after a while of fiddling, it seems that this watch cannot be transformed in the red state, but it can be transformed into an alien hero when it is in the green state. Exactly. The Omnitrix in his hand made a unique startup sound, and the light suddenly turned green. Hey, you can transform. Xiao Chen turned the Omnitrix nobly, watching the alien heroes, resisting the urge to become an alien hero. Would you like to keep a look at the individual aliens? Tian Xiaoban suggested excitedly. Forget it. Who knows if those aliens will come again? The aliens on this watch are used to deal with those monsters. Xiao Chen explained to Tian Xiaoban very seriously, and put down his wrist. Mark saw this scene and nodded secretly. Xiao Chen is the best candidate for Omnitrix. Xiao Chen is right, and this watch can do a lot of meaningful things. Tian Xiaowen agreed deeply and nodded. It seems that the words of a few people played a role. There was a panicked sound from the old car's radio station. Help! Who will help us? We are in the campsite in the northwest corner of the forest. Here, there are big robots attacking us. Boom. There was a deafening sound in addition to the sound. This must be the robots from earlier. Here again. Mark reacted immediately and looked at the Omnitrix in Xiao Chen's hand. Xiao Chen's eyes were very firm, and he said loudly, "These robots must be coming at me. Grandpa, please drive us over there. I will deal with them myself." Okay, let's get in the car. Mark was never vague at the critical moment, quickly got into the old car, got into the driver's seat, and fastened his seatbelt. After Xiao Chen waited for Tian Xiaoban and Tian Xiaowen to come in, he closed the car door and kept his eyes fixed on the car window.
Break free with the new Opera GX, the browser that puts you in control. With a brand new design that frees up even more pixels for personalization, and an inventory of features to up your game at every level. Like GX Control to help rein in your resources with integrated limiters for RAM, CPU, and network. A sidebar for direct access to your favorite side quests, streams, and posts. And built-in privacy tools like ad and tracker blockers, and free no-log VPN. Check into GX Corner for the latest news, deals, and free games. But what really makes art different is mods, giving you the power to change everything from animated wallpapers to themes, sounds, music, and shaders, so you can change everything. Get Opera GX.
Also says here, I get $5,000.
Our family history results are in.
Yes,
My great-great-grandfather came through Ellis Island.
Mine too.
Timothy
Overson.
Money about many of black souls and bodies, but I ain't selling. Me and you, we just
Found
trade
out you're
papers,
related to your
and
spouse?
I need this here contract.
There's
to
an
say
edible
that.
for that.
That ain't all. And you say, when I get this here
Fruit
next
was
shot,
just the beginning. Get all kinds of deliciousness delivered in an hour or less at edible.com. See websites for details and restrictions.
Mr. Gray, I'm sorry, but
Be careful, I'm
it doesn't
driving.
work like that.
Mark stepped on the accelerator slightly, and the old broken car opened almost all the speed, shuttled through the woods extremely fast, and drove towards the accident spot. It can be seen that although the old broken car looks a few years old, it is fast and stable when driving a fast car. At least Xiao Chen doesn't feel like a woman in the car. The old broken car is getting closer and closer to the destination. Xiao Chen could also see the fire from the distance and the increasingly louder cry for help from the window. The old broken car quickly arrived at the campsite and braked the car nearby. The campsite outside the window was already riddled with holes. Several tents were set up on fire, and there were tourists escaping everywhere and calling for help. Xiao Chen jumped down without hesitation and pushed open the car door. Xiao Chen, be careful. Mark urged, looking at Xiao Chen who was about to leave, with a trace of concern in his eyes. Understood. Grandpa, be careful too. Xiao Chen looked back at Mark and said with a smile. He walked to the open space outside, raised the Omnitrix on his wrist, and pressed it against the Flame Man pattern on it. Green light flashed on his body. What appeared in the open space was not the previous Flame Man, but a tall